Chapter 830. Li Baitao took a deep breath and managed to calm himself down with great difficulty. Sect head senior brother, I've always known that you're decisive, but I also know that when it comes to the survival of the sect, you've always been cautious. You are betting so much this time? Are you so sure that Xianmen Tianzong and the sect leader of Xianmen are fine? Wu Yunliang gave a rare bitter smile. I am not sure. If possible, I hope that this moment will never come. He looked at Li Baitao with a strange expression, because I know that Mount Shu Sword sect wanted to use my heavenly beyond mountain as a thorn in their side to be used in the future. But if something happens suddenly like today, and I cannot contact Xianmen Tianzong, it will be difficult to coordinate. Therefore, after I told them the whole story, I made an agreement with the Celestial Sect of Wonders. If there is a strange change in my outer sky mountain in the future and I am unable to communicate with them in time, the Celestial Sect of Wonders must deal with it carefully. They will not blindly fall into your trap. Instead, they will verify it in many ways and finally make a plan. Li Baitao's expression also became strange. He stared at Wu Yunliang. Verify it in many ways? Wait a minute. Chu Yang? His gaze fell on Meng Chaoran, who was standing next to Wu Yunliang. Chu Yang is your backup channel to contact Xianmen Tianzong? Chu Yang had a strong rise in the sect. That year, he had a brilliant performance at the Kunlun Mountain Assembly. He had a deep relationship with his teacher Meng Chaoran, and he was also in the Golden Elixir period. In a sect like Heavenly Beyond Mountain, he could not be seen as an ordinary disciple. Li Baitao usually paid a lot of attention to Chu Yang. However, Chu Yang often left the mountain and his cultivation was not weak. It was too difficult to monitor his every move. Li Baitao, who was in the Yuanning period, could not personally follow him. This time, Chu Yang had just left the mountain not too long ago, and there was no trace of him again. Li Baitao now realized that Chu Yang didn't really leave the mountain because he had something important to do. Instead, Wu Yunliang and Meng Chaoran had a feeling that a storm was coming, so they left Chu Yang as a backup. At this moment, Chu Yang had probably snuck back to Beyond Heaven Mountain and informed Xianmen Tianzong's people after confirming the situation there. Although honorable swordsmen of the Extreme Yin sect and the others had high cultivation, they were not the rulers of Beyond Heaven Mountain after all. Since Wu Yunliang and the others had arranged for Chu Yang to be their backup, they must have made many arrangements to allow him to enter and leave Beyond Heaven Mountain freely and secretly. The Lunar Honorable Swordsman Trio had spent most of their efforts on concealing themselves and ambushing Xianmen Tianzong's group. In the end, they had missed Chu Yang. Wu Yunliang sighed and said, "If you had discussed it with me, I might have made the same decision. But I would inevitably have more hesitations. But what you did before was tantamount to helping me make up my mind." At the first sight of Xiao Yan and Zen Master Day together, the morale of Li Baitao's side was on the verge of collapse. He simply did not deactivate the light and shadow illusion. His expression was like crying and laughing at the same time. He kept shaking his head and said, this is really ridiculous." Meng Chaoran looked at the illusionary void that everyone was in. Silently, he asked, "Second senior brother, is there still a need to maintain the formation?" Li Baitao's gaze focused on Wu Yunliang and Meng Chaoran. He said in a deep voice, "If you follow my path, there is still room for maneuver. If I fail and you hand over our group to Xianmen Tianzong will most likely not continue to make things difficult for Beyond Heaven Mountain. But what you are doing now will only make the Shu Mountain Sword sect view our entire Beyond Heaven Mountain as traitors and deceivers. They will think that we have joined hands with Xianmen Tianzong to set up a trap for them. When the Shu Mountain Sword sect takes revenge, our Beyond Heaven Mountain will inevitably suffer a calamity. Just like what I said before, even if Xianmen Tianzong is willing to go to war with the Shu Mountain Sword sect in a thunderous rage, our fellow sect members of Beyond Heaven Mountain who have died will ultimately not come back to life. You have completely tied yourselves to Xianmen Tianzong. In the future, you can only walk the path of darkness." Meng Chaoran sighed and did not say anything. Wu Yunliang also shook his head. "Second junior brother, if we had known that you would do such a thing today, our response would have been completely different. At the very least, we would have thought of a way to secretly let you go." But right now, under the eyes of Shenmen Tianzong, there is nothing we can do. Just like you said, we can only completely stand on the side of Shenmen Tianzong. Otherwise, we will offend both sides. Li Baitao looked up to the sky and sighed. He laughed at himself and directed the cultivators outside to disperse the formation. At this moment, the sky outside had already turned into a mess. The Beyond Heaven Mountain disciples in the main hall of the main hall finally realized that there was an earth-shattering battle going on outside. The formation no longer isolated the space, but it still played a protective role. Wu Yunliang, Li Baitao, and Meng Chaoran looked at the battle outside and sighed together again. Even the aftermath of the battle between the two sides was causing their sect's defensive formation to shake. Zen Master Dade used the fighting technique of the Infinite Light Buddha scripture, the 3,000 times illumination technique. Each and every one of them magnified the light and continuously used the Buddhist magical powers of the Great Freedom Buddha sect. It was difficult to determine the victor. Since ancient times, the Tempest Monastery and the Shushan Sword sect had never been on good terms. During the Battle of Buddhist Annihilation, Shushan had even participated in it personally. Now that Zen Master Dade had met the sword cultivators of Shushan, he would naturally not be polite. His Extreme Yin sword was extremely yin and soft. Its destructive power was actually much stronger than it looked. At the same time, it had many changes and was best at using softness to overcome hardness. However, its offensive power was inferior to the Little Shang and Li Xiong swords. However, his opponent was a Buddhist monk, Zen Master Dade. He cultivated the Infinite Light Buddha scripture, so he could stabilize his body. He was not rash or impatient. His fighting style was also steady and steady. When the two of them fought, no one could think of winning quickly. Putting aside the fact that Zen Master Dade did not have full confidence that he could defeat Zen Master Dade, even if he could, it would definitely be a long and fierce battle. Although Zen Master Dade had a soft and flexible personality, he was also a sword cultivator. If it were any other time, he would not mind continuing to fight with Zen Master Dade. He wanted to see whether the Tempest Temple's Buddhism was magnificent or his Shu Mountain Sword sect's Sword Tao was sharp. His predecessor, Sword Lord Tain, who was also his master, had died in battle at the Great Leiyin Temple. His impression of Buddhism was extremely terrible. However, the current situation made Zen Master Dade very impatient to continue tangling with him. On the other side, Sword Venerable Ning Lang of Broken Mountains and Sword Venerable Heavy Mist were already in dire straits against Xiao Yan even though they were fighting 2 against 1. The violent nether evil flame dyed the entire sky a gloomy and ferocious bluish-purple as it swept across everything. Sword Venerable Heavy Mist cultivated the Taiyin sword. It was extremely tough, using softness to overcome hardness. It could defend itself and was barely able to resist. Sword Venerable Ning Lang of Broken Mountains, who cultivated the Little Shang sword, was miserable. He could only fight with Xiao Yan head-on, but he was not his opponent. If not for Sword Venerable Heavy Mist's help, he would have already been injured by Xiao Yan. The 5 divine badges above Xiao Yan's head shone with a 5-colored brilliance, blocking Ning Lang's Little Shang sword. The Dharma idol roared and the dark evil flame once again surged. Xiao Yan stretched out his hand and the huge, blazing heaven-splitting slash appeared in his hand. Blazing heaven-splitting slash that seemed to split the heavens and the earth came crashing down on Ning Lang's head. Ning Lang directly manifested his own soul incarnation, transforming into a 10-meter-long, as wide as a door, heavy and powerful, fierce and overbearing huge bronze sword. Pushing the Shaoshang sword to the limit, it broke through Xiao Yan's blazing heaven-splitting slash. However, Xiao Yan laughed coldly and changed his sword stance. The dark evil flame that filled the sky transformed into a fierce purple tiger. Countless light patterns appeared all over its body and a piercingly cold killing intent that could cut through the heavens and the earth and exterminate all living beings instantly spread out. The dark evil flame, power that Xiao Yan had controlled for the longest time and was most proficient in, was activated to its limit. He became one with the sword and his own magic power connected with the evil flame, Overlord sword, combining with the fierce flaming tiger. It roared and pounced towards the bronze sword formed by Ning Lang's Yuan-Shin. With a swipe of its claws, an earth-shaking sound of metal clashing could be heard. A crack had already appeared on the bronze sword formed by Ning Lang. Sword Venerable Heavy Mist had no choice but to give up on his defense. His cloud-like sword chi spread out and entangled with the white tiger formed by the dark evil flame, helping Ning Lang out of his predicament. The white tiger roared and spoke in human language. It sneered and said, "I was waiting for you." Evil and strange black flames suddenly surged out of the white tiger's body like rolling black smoke and tangled with Sword Venerable Heavy Mist's sword chi. These black flames twisted and took shape in the sky. It had a head like an ox, horns like a deer, eyes like a prawn, ears like an elephant, neck like a snake, abdomen like a snake, scales like a fish, claws like a phoenix, and palms like a tiger. There were 81 scales on its back, representing the number of 9 by 9. Its breath formed clouds and sounded like a copper plate. It had a beard beside its mouth and a pearl under its chin. This was the shape of a true dragon. The black flames transformed into a huge dragon that soared in the sky and swallowed all the cloud-like sword chi. Even if the sword chi struck the body of the black flame dragon, it was like throwing a stone into water. It only caused a ripple and then disappeared. The mysterious heaven tribulation flame, and the image of the green dragon wanted to swallow the heavens and the earth. Sword Venerable Heavy Mist's face was livid. She discovered that her sword chi and dermic powers were being rapidly swallowed by the mysterious heaven tribulation flame, regardless of whether she was attacking or defending. She wanted to withdraw her sword chi and defend with all her might again, but a fierce sword hum sounded from within the black flame dragon. The mysterious heaven tribulation flame dissipated and Xiao Yan's figure was revealed. He said indifferently, "It's too late." He held the evil radiance overlord sword in his left hand and grabbed at the void in front of him with his right hand. The heaven and earth avatar above his head did the same. In an instant, it covered the sky as if endless evil flames and the mysterious heaven tribulation flame had gathered together and turned into a black-purple lotus flower that smashed down towards Sword Venerable Heavy Mist's head. Firmament Flaming Lotus. After Xiao Yin achieved the heaven and earth avatar and successfully advanced to the late-stage Yuaning realm, his dual flaming lotus also had the power to burn the heavens. Sword Venerable Heavy Mist's pale face turned a little black under the illumination of the terrifying flames. He immediately revealed his primordial spirit incarnation. A soft sword that looked illusory and misty, the sword light was like smoke and water, blocking the terrifying explosive power of Xiao Yan's firmament flaming lotus. On the other side, Sword Venerable Ning Lang of Broken Mountains also decisively activated the Xiaoshang sword. It turned into an extremely condensed, domineering, and forceful sword light that was thousands of zhang long. It swayed in the distorted void, turning a short distance into a long distance. Then, it crossed the endless void with a step and arrived in front of Xiao Yan, helping Sword Venerable Heavy Mist to block the attack. Flames exploded, and the sky was filled with sword light and flowing fire. The 5 divine badges above Xiao Yan's head flickered with light, blocking the vicious sword light and shaking violently. Although the 5 divine badges were strong, Xiao Yan himself had yet to form his primordial spirit. He couldn't completely unleash the power of this magical treasure, and he couldn't completely defend against the Shushan sword cultivators. Therefore, as long as he blocked most of the sword light, Xiao Yan would be able to defend against the remaining sword light. Although Ning Lang and Sword Venerable Heavy Mist had blocked the fiery lotus, they didn't even have the time to catch their breath when they saw the bluish-purple nether evil flame and the black heavenly tribulation flame in front of them dispersing instead of collapsing. Instead, they gathered together again. At the same time, a large amount of dazzling golden flames gathered together, like a rising sun. The golden true fire of the sun, the nether evil flame, and the heavenly tribulation flame gathered again, forming a small blackish-purple lotus. The golden stamen on the lotus swayed continuously in the wind. Chapter 8:31. In the Sea of Fire, a tall giant with 4 heads and 8 arms stood upright. The milky white pure yang true fire had transformed into his body, the 8 trigrams had transformed into 8 arms, and the true sun fire, Nen Mingli fire, nether evil flame, and mysterious sky tribulation flame had transformed into 4 heads. In front of the giant, there was a small black and purple lotus. The golden stamen on the lotus trembled slightly, looking delicate. However, the expressions of Ning Lang and venerable swordsman Heavy Smoke turned grim. They could clearly sense the terrifying might contained in Xiao Yan's triple flaming lotus. Xiao Yan used the combination of dark evil blaze, true sun fire, and mysterious heavenly tribulation flame for this triple flaming lotus. It was the combination of 3 types of true fire, and it was the most destructive combination. Now that Xiao Yan, who was in the late Yuaning realm, used it, he could surpass most first-tier primordial spirit realm cultivators without any external help. The seemingly calm but extremely violent power descended from the sky, illuminating the grave expressions of Ning Lang and venerable swordsman Heavy Smoke. Even the Grand Yin Sword Lord was alerted by this tri-flaming lotus. He took a deep breath, and the mist-like sword intent dissipated to reveal a thin, scholarly projection of a short and thin scholar who was wielding a sword in one hand. This was none other than his return to void stage Dharma body. The power of the great Yin Sword Lord in the sky was activated to the extreme, and it actually changed from extreme Yin and extreme softness to extreme Yang and extreme toughness. The instantaneous change allowed him to forcefully shake off Zen Master Dade's Buddhist power that he was fighting with, and then he charged toward Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan's triple flaming lotus might not be able to kill Ning Lang and venerable swordsman Heavy Smoke, but the 2 primordial spirit realm Shushan sword cultivators would not have it easy either. The great Yin Sword Lord unleashed his sword force, and his sword will and sword chi transformed into a white cloud, protecting himself, Ning Lang, and venerable swordsman Heavy Smoke. The violent fire lotus landed on the cloud and instantly exploded, turning into a sea of flames. A huge pillar of fire soared into the sky, as if it had punched a huge hole in the sky. Almost everything within a radius of 1,000 li was reduced to nothingness, and all the plants were instantly reduced to ashes. The peaks of the Kunlun mountain range, which had existed since ancient times, were scorched white. Many of the rocks collapsed and turned into piles of white ash. Such a terrifying explosive power, even the destructive power of the aftermath was shocking. Jie Yu and the other 3 demon kings did not dare to be careless, and had to defend with all their might. Zen Master Dade waved his hand, and a Buddhist light enveloped Beyond Mountain, protecting it from damage. The cloud that the Tai Yin sword had turned into was bombarded by the raging fire. It rolled and rolled like a boiling sea, but it did not shatter. Endless wisps of mist-like condensed sword intent and sword chi layered over each other, turning well-tempered steel into softness. 100,000, 1 million, 10 million, and even hundreds of millions of times, they weakened the explosive power of the firmament flame lotus layer by layer. Every strand of sword intent looked as fine as a strand of hair. Not to mention the firmament flame lotus, even an ordinary person would be able to tear those strands of sword intent apart. However, they were actually extremely condensed and flexible. It would be extremely difficult to destroy any strand of sword intent. These hundreds of millions of chi strands were not just accumulating and defending passively. Every chi strand was constantly swaying, operating according to the mysteries of the lunar sword, and interconnecting with each other. The hundreds of millions of chi strands intertwined and successfully blocked Xiao Yan's terrifying 3-flame lotus. In the next moment, the sword will of the lunar sword venerable led, and countless chi strands spread out, attacking Xiao Yan. After experiencing the boundless sea of fire, many chi strands were burned, but more chi strands surged up. Every chi strand was controlled by the lunar sword venerable, as if they had their own independent lives and thoughts, and kept circling in the sea of fire. Even if they were burned, they would open up a path for other chi strands. For a moment, countless chi strands formed by the lunar sword will surged, and actually had the effect of cutting off the flow. They wanted to flatten the boundless sea of fire in the sky. Xiao Yan smiled, and his whole body was surrounded by black smoke. The image of the azure dragon formed by the mysterious heaven tribulation flames spread out again, circling in front of him. The endless mysterious heaven tribulation flames spread between heaven and earth, and began to crazily devour the sword chi of the lunar sword venerable. As it continued to devour, the mysterious heaven tribulation flame became more and more terrifying. Not only was it not consumed by the chi strands, but it became more and more powerful. In the end, the black fire was so monstrous that it covered the sky and the sun, and the nearby sky was completely dark. The mysterious heaven tribulation flame's brutal and greedy power made even the lunar sword venerable frown. Even though a small number of chi strands broke through the tribulation flame azure dragon, they could not break the defense of the 5 divine badges in front of Xiao Yan. With the protection of the 5 divine badges, Xiao Yan completely gave up on his own defense. Instead, he pushed his magic power to the extreme to fight with the lunar sword venerable. If it were sword venerable Little Shang, sword venerable Li Meng, or sword venerable Xiaoyang, they could continue to increase the power of their attacks. The mysterious heaven tribulation flame's devouring power was limitless, but there was a limit to how much Xiao Yan, who was in the late Yuanying stage, could freely control. Although his magic power was shocking, he was still in the Yuanying stage. With the power of the mysterious heaven tribulation flame alone, a great sword cultivator at the 2nd tier of the primordial soul realm could still break it. If Xiao Yan increased the power of the mysterious heaven tribulation flame and exceeded a certain limit, the mysterious heaven tribulation flame might go out of control. At that time, even Xiao Yan's own magic power would be devoured. But that was a sword Dao that could be fierce, sharp, or vigorous. Although the lunar sword venerable's lunar sword was very exquisite and unpredictable, it was not suitable for a strong attack. Even if he increased the power, it would still be a slow grind with Xiao Yan. But in the current situation, a slow grind wouldn't solve the problem. It would only be futilely giving his sword chi and magic power to the mysterious heaven tribulation flame as firewood. His lunar sword venerable could withstand Xiao Yan's violent tri-flame lotus, but against the calamity flame azure dragon, his hands and feet were tied. It's a pity that my understanding of the lunar sword venerable is still insufficient. Otherwise, if I had mastered the lunar four void sword realm, how could I not deal with this little thief? The lunar four void sword realm was the highest realm of the lunar sword venerable. Four void referred to being everywhere, traceless, endless, and all-pervasive. Training the sword to transform billions of strands of chi, gathering them together and turning them at will, was the ultimate defense of the lunar sword. However, for a swordsman and a killing weapon, their strongest point was always their offense. It was the same even for the soft and flexible lunar sword, and the lunar four-less sword realm was the ultimate attack power of the lunar sword. But throughout all of Shushan, there were only a few who could master this sword technique at the 2nd tier of the primordial soul realm. Seeing that Xiao Yan's calamity flame azure dragon was getting fiercer and fiercer, the lunar sword venerable gave up on the offensive again and used all his chi threads to protect himself. He also stopped attacking and focused on defense. Although the mysterious heaven tribulation flame could still devour his sword chi and magic power, the tough chi threads circled around and joined together to circulate endlessly. If the mysterious heaven tribulation flame wanted to devour them again, the difficulty would immediately increase by 100 times. The news had already spread. Beyond Heaven Mountain was located at the southern edge of Kunlun Mountain, not very far from Shushan. When the other Shushan sword cultivators received the news, they would definitely come to help. Although they had not clearly tested the strength of Xianmen Tianzong, and the small conflict had a tendency to escalate, which was somewhat out of the expectations of the lunar sword venerable and the others. But if a battle really broke out, the Shushan sword cultivators were not afraid. Xiao Yan saw through his plan at a glance and revealed a cold smile. Guarding a turtle shell and waiting for reinforcements? Come to think of it, why do I always encounter opponents like you? Hearing this, the lunar sword venerable frowned slightly. Then he saw Xiao Yan snicker, but there was a fierce glint in his eyes. I'm afraid you still don't know? What I'm best at is smashing turtle shells. As he spoke, 3 colored fire lotuses appeared one after another. The Yang Fire Lotus was formed by the pure Yang True Fire, Solar True Fire, and Nanming Li Fire. The Yin Fire Lotus was formed by the mysterious Heaven Tribulation Flame, Dark Evil Blaze, and Nanming Li Fire. Each had 3 lotuses, and they stood on 2 sides, forming a huge Yin-Yang Tai Chi diagram. Like a stone mill, the lunar sword Venerable and the others were squeezed in the center. Yin and Yang rotated, and a majestic force crushed them continuously. The lunar sword Venerable's face was as dark as still water. He fully unleashed the power of his return to void Dharma physique. Strands of qi gathered together, and like clouds and mist, they helped him, Ning Lang, and Sword Venerable Heavy Mist to resist the terrifying power of Xiao Yan's yin-yang burning sky formation. Xiao Yan stepped into the void and arrived above the clouds and mist. The heaven and earth Dharma idol above his head released a deafening roar. A milky white sea of pure Yang True Fire spread out in the sky. The Tribulation Flame Azure Dragon, Evil Radiance White Tiger, Heavenly Radiance Vermilion Bird, and Leaf Fire Black Tortoise appeared together. The distant sky seemed to have opened up, and 28 constellations shone faintly in the sky. They stood in 4 directions, and each direction had 7 constellations. Although Xiao Yan didn't truly draw upon the power of the 28 constellations to strengthen himself, his martial will was faintly resonating with the 4 symbols and 28 constellations in the heavenly river galaxy. Above Xiao Yan's heaven and earth Dharma idol, light and shadow wavered, forming an illusory starry sky. The 28 constellations in the starry sky were dazzling. This was Xiao Yan's own martial will. It was almost tangible, and it shook the heavens and earth. In the illusory starry sky of light and shadow, the Tribulation Flame Azure Dragon merged with the 7 constellations of the Azure Dragon of the East: Horned Wood Dragon, Kong Gold Dragon, D Earth Raccoon, Room Sun Rabbit, Heart Moon Fox, Tail Fire Tiger, and Water Leopard of Winnowing Basket. The Evil Radiance White Tiger corresponded with the 7 constellations of the Western White Tiger: Wood Wolf, Gold Dog, Stomach Pheasant, Sun Rooster, Moon Crow, Fire Monkey, and Water Ape. The Heavenly Radiance Vermilion Bird merged with the 7 constellations of the Southern Vermilion Bird: Wood Dragon, Ghost Goat, Willow Earth Deer, Star Horse, Moon Deer of Extended Net, Winged Fire Snake, and Water Worm of Zhen. Finally, the Leaf Fire Black Tortoise merged with the 7 constellations of the Northern Black Tortoise: Wood Dragon, Golden Bull Nyo, Earth Bat of Girl, Sun Rat of Emptiness, Moon Swallow, Room Fire Pig, and Water Worm of Wall. Xiao Yan smiled coldly as he looked at the clouds formed by the great Yin Sword Venerable's sword will. The heaven and earth Dharma idol above his head returned to his body, but he didn't put it away. Instead, he temporarily merged with Xiao Yan's physical body, merging his martial arts into one. His physical body's qi, blood, and magical powers. Under the impetus of his martial will, although Xiao Yan wasn't a pure warrior, he had merged his heaven and earth Dharma idol with his physical body. His magical powers nourished his physical body's qi and blood, causing his physical body to become extremely powerful at this moment. At the same time, because the great Yin Sword Venerable only defended and didn't attack, the 5 divine tokens also stopped defending. Instead, they poured all of their spiritual powers into Xiao Yan's body. The violent qi and blood made Xiao Yan seem even more scorching than the sun in the sky. The heat rose to an extreme, but it gradually faded away. His entire person was like the starlight in the vast universe, vast and boundless. The next moment, Xiao Yan raised his right hand and smashed it down towards the great Yin Sword Venerable with a force that could collapse the heavens. The 4 symbols and 28 constellations in the illusory light also came crashing down together with the flames that filled the sky, like a river of stars falling to the ground. Xiao Yan had comprehended the 4 symbols heaven opening scripture and had comprehended a remarkable power 4 symbols Milky Way palm. Chapter 8:32. As Xiao Yan's palm landed, Sword Lord Great Yin, who was already trapped by the yin-yang burning sky formation, immediately sensed danger. The great Yin sword catalyzed thousands of qi threads to materialize into a sword qi cloud. While facing the yin-yang burning sky formation's suppression, It also withstood the four symbols Milky River Palm's attack. The terrifying explosive force caused the chi threads to shatter. A crack appeared on the sword chi cloud, revealing Sword Lord Great Yin's astonished expression. In the next moment, the yin-yang burning sky formation was also completely detonated by this domineering palm strike. There was an endless chain of explosions. The massive explosive force and the distorting force from the collapse of yin and yang worked together on the sword chi cloud that had already revealed a flaw. In the end, Sword Lord Great Yin's sword chi cloud was completely blown to smithereens. Xiao Yan had used the same method he had used to break Marquis Jinghuan's ruthless emperor battle robe. He repeated the same method again, using powerful explosive force to first open up a gap in the enemy's originally complete defense. Then he used the yin-yang burning sky formation's relentless attacks to completely destroy the enemy. Although Marquis Jinghuan had the ruthless emperor battle robe, it had been severely damaged in the past. Marquis Jinghuan had yet to attain the essence soul realm, so he couldn't withstand Xiao Yan's four fire lotus and yin-yang burning sky formations killing blow. Although the Great Yin Sword Lord was a great sword cultivator at the second tier of the primordial spirit realm and had pushed the defensive power of his Great Yin sword cultivation to the limit, he was still unable to withstand it. The current Xiao Yan was much stronger than when he fought Marquis Jinghuan that day. Continuous explosions of flames filled the air. Even Sword Lord Great Yin's return to void stage Dharma body was injured by the explosions. Fortunately, Ning Lang and Sword Lord Heavy Smoke were helping to fend off the attacks. Otherwise, Sword Lord Great Yin's situation would be even worse. Xiao Yan's figure appeared in the sea of flames. He was like a fiend celestial that had walked out of a fiery hell. At this moment he was filled with a sense of oppression. Xiao Yan's expression is also extremely pale. His divine abilities and mana are extremely violent and ferocious, their power is peerless. But the consumption of mana is also extremely huge. Continuously using the yin-yang burning heaven formation and the four-symbol Milky Way palm is also quite taxing on him. However, if he did not use the firmament flaming lotus, which was merged with the four great true flames, he would not be emptied out in one go. Even after Xiao Yan cultivated the worldly Dharma idol and reached the late-stage Yuaning realm, the firmament flaming lotus, which merged with the four great true flames, was still a heavy burden on him. If it had been like his battle with Marquis Jinghuan and one of the true flames he fused with was a pure yang true flame, it would have been slightly better. However, if he wanted to maximize its power and fuse four kinds of true fires, the nether evil flame, the mysterious heavenly tribulation flame, the Nanmingli fire, and the true sun fire, the stability would still be relatively poor. At the same time, the casting time would be too long. If he used the four fiery lotus, his magic power would almost be exhausted. Therefore, in the years after he came back from Yingxi, Xiao Yan had been thinking about it seriously. He further studied the Tao of his own sect, and at the same time, studied the Astro-Sovereign martial arts from Zhu. In the end, he made further progress on his four symbols martial arts and created the four symbols Milky Way palm. It was also extremely powerful and domineering, and it could also be used with the yin-yang burning sky array. Although its power was slightly inferior to the four fiery lotus, it could be used more freely. For example, even though he had consumed a lot of energy, Xiao Yan could still continue fighting with the enemy, and he wouldn't be completely exhausted. After Xiao Yan broke through the Great Yin Sword Lord's defense, Zen Master Dade, who had been guarding him from the side, didn't just stand by and watch. He immediately added a bright, pure, and extremely dazzling Buddhist light onto the Great Yin Sword Lord. At this moment, Ning Lang and Sword Lord Heavy Smoke were still struggling to resist the terrifying bombardment caused by the complete explosion of the yin-yang burning sky array. They could only watch helplessly as Zen Master Dade's Buddhist light attacked the Great Yin Sword Lord, who had yet to recover his breath. Boundless light surged into the Great Yin Sword Lord's return to void Dharma body. There wasn't much sound, and there wasn't much of a ripple, but the Great Yin Sword Lord's expression changed drastically. In the next instant, a sliver of light suddenly appeared on his return to void Dharma body. Immediately afterward, more and more thin beams of light shot forth from within his Dharma body. At the same time, cracks began to appear on the Great Een Sword Lord's Dharma body. The light emanating from the Great Een Sword Lord's body became more and more dazzling, as if his Dharma body was an eggshell from which boundless light was about to burst forth. This was one of the most powerful Buddhist divine abilities in the 3000 illumination technique of the Infinite Light Buddha Sutra, the Zen Light of Great Liberation. Zen Master Dade's Zen Light of Great Liberation was aimed at shattering the Great Een Sword Lord's return to void Dharma body and sending it to paradise. Nice. What a great Xiao Yen. And you, Zen Master, what a great Zen Light of Great Liberation. The cheeks of the Great Een Sword Lord's return to void Dharma body were also riddled with cracks. Boundless light seeped through the cracks, making him appear extremely sinister and sinister. Amid his enraged roar, a wisp of faint mist suddenly surged out from the Great Een Sword Lord's body. The mist shimmered with a lustrous light, and the sword intent of the Great Een Sword emanated from it. However, this sword intent was far more powerful than the Great Een Sword Lord's. This wisp of faint mist enshrouded the Great Een Sword Lord's return to void Dharma body and forcibly suppressed Zen Master Dade's Zen Light of Great Liberation. Zen Master Dade's white brows twitched slightly. The sword intent of a Dao integration stage sword cultivator? The wisp of mist swept up the Great Een Sword Lord, Ning Lang, and Sword Lord Zhong Yan, and they all flew into the distance. The Great Een Sword Lord's original intention was to wait for reinforcements and delay Xiao Yan and the others here. Thus, he hadn't used this final trump card. However, he didn't expect Xiao Yan to be so ferocious. If he didn't leave now, he would be in great danger before his fellow sect members arrived. Xiao Yan's brows furrowed, and he picked up the evil radiant tyrant sword. Golden wings spread open on his back, and the true sunfire transformed into the image of a vermilion bird. He tore through the void and chased after the Great Een Sword Lord and the others. After using the heavenly radiant vermilion bird body of the four symbols martial Dao, Xiao Yan raised the evil radiant tyrant sword with both hands and slashed down. Evil radiant white tiger slash. The sword intent was busy carrying the Great Een Sword Lord and the others away and suppressing the Zen Light of Great Liberation. However, Xiao Yan's sword slashed down, and one of the arms of the Great Een Sword Lord's return to void Dharma body was directly severed. The Zen Light of Great Liberation that had been suppressed earlier also took this opportunity to wreak havoc, and a large amount of light splattered out like blood. Great Een Sword Venerable let out a miserable groan. Xiao Yan was also shaken by that sword intent until he vomited blood and flew backwards. Xiao Yan! A fierce roar resounded through the sky, and the Great Een Sword Lord was swept away by the sword intent mist. He stared at Xiao Yan with eyes that seemed to be spewing fire. Xiao Yan sneered and raised his hand to wipe away the blood at the corner of his mouth. In the great hall on Beyond Heaven Mountain, Wu Yunliang, Li Baitao, Meng Charan, and the others were silent as they watched the great battle finally end and the smoke gradually dissipate. The upper echelons of Beyond Heaven Mountain looked at each other and shook their heads in unison. They sighed and had complicated expressions. One of the personal disciples of the Taoist sect's master, one of the 6 lineages sword masters of the Mount Shu sword sect, Wu Yunliang sighed softly. In the Ying Sea, the personal disciple of the Taoist sect's master, Zhu Yi, almost defeated the Eastern Heavenly Gate's first-tier primordial spirit transformation cultivator, Xiao Qingqing, with his late-stage Yuanying cultivation. After that, he defeated the Great Qin Dynasty's second-tier primordial spirit transformation cultivator, King Jingfang Shilin. At that time, we all found it hard to imagine. Now that we have personally witnessed the battle between Xiao Yan and the Mount Shu sword sect's Great Een Sword Lord, we finally know that there are truly such amazing people in this world. Even though the Great Een Sword Lord has just refined his spirit to return to the void not long ago, he is still a true second-tier primordial spirit transformation cultivator. Li Baitao was silent. After a long time, he shook his head slightly. If the Taoist sect's master is deliberately mystifying this time, then forget it. If he really goes missing this time, his enemies will definitely form the exterminating Shen Coalition army. This is because for Xianmen Tianzong's enemies, this is probably the best opportunity. Otherwise, when Xiao Yan, Zhu Yi, and the rest have proven their primordial spirit transformation, it will be much more difficult to deal with Xianmen Tianzong. The potential of this sect is really shocking. When this potential is completely transformed into strength, 99% of the forces in the Divine Land will have to look up to them. Wu Yunliang and Meng Chaoran did not speak. At this moment, Li Yuanfang, Jie Yu, and the rest had already arrived at the main hall. Li Yuanfang cupped his hands towards Wu Yunliang. Sect leader Wu, according to the previous agreement, your sect can head to the vicinity of Cloud Mirror City to rebuild your sect. This time, your sect has sacrificed a lot. I, Xianmen Tianzong, have seen it all and will remember it. Elder Li is too polite. Wu Yunliang composed himself and nodded. This is what we agreed upon. If we do not act according to the agreement, we will have to thank Xian's sect for protecting us. Li Yuanfang said, this matter should not be delayed. Please mobilize your sect as soon as possible. Wu Yunliang replied, of course. I will immediately give the order. I will not delay Xian's sect's time. He turned his head to look at Li Baitao and the rest, who were frozen in place. Then he cupped his hands towards Li Yuanfang and said, Tian's Beyond Mountain is unfortunate. These traitors have appeared, and they even attracted the cultivators of Shu Mountain Sword sect to ambush Xian sect. I am so ashamed that I cannot show my face. Elder Li, please deal with this. Li Yuanfang shook his head. Your sect has its own rules. I will not interfere. Sect leader Wu, please deal with this according to the rules. After hearing Li Yuanfang's words, Li Baitao and the rest's faces became even more gloomy. Of course, Tian's Beyond Mountain also had its own rules for dealing with traitors. Every sect had these rules. The written descriptions were similar, but the final punishment was the same. Traitors had to die. Wu Yunliang sighed and steeled his heart to make a decision. At this time, the elder of the previous generation said, temporarily lock them up. We will discuss this later. Right now, the most important thing is to leave Tian's Beyond Mountain as soon as possible to prevent Shu Mountain's retaliation. Elder Xiao and the rest of Xian sect should not stay here for us. Wu Yunliang frowned slightly. If he brought Li Baitao and the rest to Cloud Mirror City, it would be terrible if Li Baitao and the rest did not give up and caused chaos in Cloud Mirror City. The elder of the previous generation sighed and looked at Meng Chaoran. Chaoran will be responsible for looking after them. Hearing this arrangement, Wu Yunliang and Meng Chaoran were silent for a moment before finally nodding. Although it happened suddenly, Wu Yunliang and the other higher-ups had already anticipated the worst and had secretly made some preparations. At this moment, the efficiency of mobilizing the entire Tian's Beyond Mountain to move was not too bad. After Li Baitao and the rest were purged, Wu Yunliang's powerful control, which usually did not reveal anything, showed itself. Groups of Tian's Beyond Mountain cultivators were led down the mountain in an orderly manner by Wu Yunliang and the rest. However, everyone was reluctant to leave Tian's Beyond Mountain, where they were born and raised. Xiao Yan's line of sight was actually always in the direction of Shu Mountain. He thought to himself, my response is tough, which is in line with our sect's usual style. However, I did not kill Sword Lord Lunar and the rest, so Shu Mountain will not be completely humiliated into anger. In this way, before Shu Mountain understands the situation of our sect, they should not act rashly. At most, they will change direction and continue to probe in small areas. As he was thinking, Xiao Yan's heart suddenly moved. HM? Third Junior Brothers F.A. Lee Sound Transmission? Chapter 8:33. After listening to the message from Wang Lin, Xiao Yan's expression did not change, but his whole body erupted with a frightening aura. It was even more frightening than when he was fighting against Sword Lord Taiyin and the others. His eyes flashed with a cold light. There was no leakage of any spiritual power, but the atmosphere that had cooled down after the battle seemed to become scorching hot again. Wu Yunliang and the others felt a chill in their hearts. At the same time, they were also puzzled. They did not know what had provoked this eldest disciple of Xian Men. At the foot of Heavenly Mountain, the black-robed Chu Yang looked up at Xiao Yan in the sky. He had a faint ominous premonition. As far as he knew, Although this eldest disciple of Shenmen Tianzong had a fiery temper, he had calmed down a lot over the years. There were not many things that could cause such a big reaction from him. In the void, Xiao Yan took a deep breath and completely restrained his aura. Everything returned to normal, as if everything that had just happened was an illusion. This made Wu Yunliang and the others even more puzzled. Li Yuanfang looked at Xiao Yan. After a moment of silence, Xiao Yan used his spiritual power to transmit a few words to Li Yuanfang. Although there was no change in his expression, Li Yuanfang's breathing paused for a moment. He looked at Xiao Yan, and the two brothers looked at each other without saying a word. Li Yuanfang looked at Wu Yunliang with a normal expression. Sect leader Wu, we have just received a message from our sect. We need to hurry back to the mountain as soon as possible. Please be quick. Please forgive us. Wu Yunliang, Meng Charan, and the others' hearts sank at the same time. However, at this moment, they had completely broken off their relationship with Shu Mountain. No matter what happened in Shenmen Tianzong, they could only go down the dark path. No problem. It was the sect that delayed everyone's time. Wu Yunliang nodded and personally went to supervise the disciples of Heavenly Mountain to leave. After everyone in Beyond Heaven Mountain was ready, Zen Master Dade used his magic power to sweep them away. Then he left with Xiao Yan, Li Yuanfang, and the others and rushed to the entrance of the mysterious heaven realm in the southern foothills of Kunlun Mountain. There, Lin Feng had set up a void teleportation portal that led directly to Cloud Mirror City, which could save them a lot of time. At the same time, a piece of news from Tianhuang Vast Land spread rapidly in the Divine Land through various channels. The successor disciple of Shenmen Tianzong, Zhou Yunzong, was captured by the mysterious golden cicada sage of the demon race and brought to Tianhuang mainland. Lin Feng, the leader of the celestial sect of wonders, who had always been indifferent, did not react to this. Not only did he not look for golden cicada, he did not even show up. As the news spread, everyone could confirm one thing by comparing it to the sudden changes that had happened to Jade Capital Mountain recently. The leader of the celestial sect of wonders, Lin Feng, and Shenmen Tianzong had both experienced major changes at this moment. Lin Feng's whereabouts were unknown. He might have died, he might have been in seclusion due to serious injuries, he might have been trapped in an alternate dimension or a medium-class world, or he might have been in seclusion in the void. In short, this new powerhouse of the human race who had suddenly appeared and stirred up the heaven primordial world since the founding of the sect was not in the vast thousand worlds at the moment. Otherwise, even if he was not in Jade Capital Mountain or the sect, it was impossible for there to be no reaction or no news of such a vicious incident. Ever since Jade Capital Mountain had suddenly emerged from the void, the doubts in everyone's minds were finally answered. Following that, the entire Divine Land became turbulent and turbulent. At the same time, Tianhuang Mainland was also not peaceful. In the easternmost part of Tianhuang Mainland, there was a quiet valley that was shrouded in thick clouds all year round. Few people knew what was hidden under the clouds. Going deep into the valley, one would realize that there was actually a huge crack in the ground. The ground split open and extended downwards continuously. In the deep valley, there was also a thick fog shrouding it. But at this moment, purple light suddenly lit up in the darkness in the depths of the fog. 2 spots of purple light rose continuously, and the fog gradually thinned. One could clearly see that the 2 spots of purple light were actually the eyes of a person. This figure was blurry, like a primitive and ignorant universe. Resplendent purple light shot out from her eyes, and an incomparably terrifying aura spread out from her eyes, shaking the heavens. She was none other than the enchantress who had disappeared after obtaining a portion of Yudu Minghua in the Cloud Forest world. She had not shown herself for many years. In the past, the Heaven Primordial World was used to naming the 10 most active and famous great sages of the demon race as the 10 saints of the demon race. The enchantress was publicly recognized as the leader of the 10 saints, and many people even thought that she was the great demon with the greatest hope of becoming the next saint emperor of the demon race. However, the enchantress was clear in her heart that her foundation was still slightly shallow when facing some old demons that had hidden themselves from the world. However, after refining the Yudu Minghua and cultivating in the abyss that accelerated the flow of time for many years, the enchantress had finally succeeded in advancing to the next level. No matter if it was her cultivation realm or divine arts, they had all grown by a large margin. The current her had the confidence to fight against any great demon in Heaven Wasteland, even if it was those great ancient demons that had hidden themselves from the world. Now, she truly had the capital to contend for the position of the new Saint Emperor of the demon race. Behind the enchantress, Heavenly Wolf Great Sage, Long Yi Ant Umbrella, and many other great demons floated up from the abyss. Revealing his true form, Heavenly Wolf Great Sage, who had the appearance of a huge wolf, stared with a pair of bloody eyes and growled in a low voice, "We can finally see the light of day again." Long Yi was still dressed in white and stood behind the enchantress with a smile. The other great demons all bowed to the enchantress and said, "We are willing to follow the enchantress to conquer the world and hope that our empress can ascend to the throne as soon as possible." It's still too early to say that. I'm not like Thunder Abyss, who needs to increase my confidence in all aspects. The enchantress's voice was still hoarse as she laughed softly. A journey of 10,000 miles begins with a single step. We still have many things to do. Purple light flashed in her eyes, and it was as though she had passed through the boundless void and the barrier between the two worlds, landing on the divine land. Yu Huang is indeed extraordinary. If it wasn't for me studying Yudu Minghua all these years and seeing fragments of her actions, I wouldn't have known that the heavenly realm above Taishu Temple is actually the spirit sea of the 7 seas of heavenly primordial 7 seas. Back then, it was even sealed because of Yu Huang. The enchantress closed her eyes. There was a sudden change in Yudu Minghua not long ago. I can faintly feel that it was a change in the traces that Yu Huang left in the spirit sea. The spirit sea reopened, and Taishu Temple entered it to clear away the traces that Yu Huang left behind. However, how mysterious is the Spirit Sea? It actually sealed again. According to the news from Golden Cicada, the Master of Celestial Gate is also missing. The Jade Capital Mountain of Shenmen Tianzong suddenly appeared in the void, and the timing is also extremely coincidental. If I'm not wrong, the Master of Celestial Gate and many strong practitioners of Taishu Temple are probably still in the Spirit Sea. Bloody light flashed in Heavenly Wolf Great Sage's eyes. Senior sister, you mean, the situation of Taishu Temple is still unclear. Who knows how many people are trapped in the Spirit Sea? The enchantress shook her head. Furthermore, even if the 4 elders Tai, Tingyi, Qingyi, and Xuanyi aren't here, as long as the Haotian mirror is still here, it's not a small risk to enter the divine land blindly. However, it's indeed a pity that we demons didn't unify such a good opportunity. Otherwise, if we started the war between the two worlds now, we would be able to obtain complete victory. Long Yi smiled slightly. But this doesn't mean that we don't do anything. The enchantress's illusory face revealed what seemed to be a smile at the same time. That's right, Taishu Temple is currently empty. It's more than enough to defend, but not enough to advance. It's convenient for us to act. Heavenly Wolf Great Sage grinned. This time, no matter what we do, they can only watch. If we don't go to the divine land to find trouble, they should be thanking the heavens. The enchantress said, "Let's spread the news. I believe many people will be willing to remove the nail that Taishu Temple left in infinite wilderness. It's been an eyesore for more than 4,000 years. She smiled leisurely. This time, we'll have to cooperate with Deep Thunder. At the same time, in the extreme north of infinite wilderness, the void suddenly split open. It was a hidden entrance to a medium-sized world. From the realm passageway, a giant golden-winged rock flew out. Its pitch-black eyes flashed with a cold and demonic golden light, its aura heavy and majestic. There seemed to be a purple glow rolling on its golden feathers. Its demonic power was extremely terrifying, as if it could tear the realm apart with a gentle flap of its wings. It was the Golden Rock Great Sage, Deep Thunder Golden Rock. He closed his wings and stepped on the void with his 2 claws, as if he was grabbing an invisible tree trunk. A pair of cold eyes stared at the distant sky. After a long time, a sigh resounded in the world. What a pity, what a pity. It's rare for Taishu Temple to be so weak. What a pity. However, although we can't go to the Divine Land, we can first remove the nail that Taishu Temple has left in Infinite Wilderness. Golden Rock Great Sage flapped his wings and disappeared into the sky. Behind him, Great Sage Cheongchi, Heavenly Wheel Golden Rock and other demons followed closely in the realm passageway of the medium-sized world, flying into the distance together. Since the war between the two worlds, Taishu Temple had extended its hands into Infinite Wilderness. Although it did not make any big moves, all the demons felt like they had a fishbone stuck in their throats. Even if Taishu Temple stayed there quietly, it still made it difficult for the demons to act freely. Now, there was a chance to cut off the Taishu Temple's tentacles. For all the demons, it was a common demand. As the news of Taishu Temple and Golden Rock Great Sage spread, the entire Infinite Wilderness was shaken. Even many of the hidden great demons became restless. The Enchantress and Golden Rock Great Sage possessed Yudu Minghua and the secret of Yudu. They were also the targets of many other great demons. After spreading the news, they remained hidden behind the scenes, but they were also waiting for an opportunity to make a move. Long Yi followed behind the Heavenly Charm Great Saint, the corners of her mouth revealing a light smile. The Void Temple won't give in easily. This way, it's the same as our side also restraining the forces left behind by the Void Temple. In the vast land of the Divine Continent, I believe quite a few interesting things will happen right now. At that moment, the curtains of chaos had completely opened in the Divine Land. The battlefield in the Void was connected to the world of the King of the Underworld. Sinister winds were everywhere, and it was like the Netherworld. In the majestic and pitch-black Imperial Palace, in front of the Black Dragon throne in the main hall, Su Anda, the Hall Master of the Underworld Hall, stood calmly with his hands behind his back. Behind him, there were 5 figures standing side by side quietly. Su Anda smiled faintly and asked, "Have they already left?" Chapter 8:34. Behind Su Anda, 5 people stood side by side. One of them was King Chujiang. When he heard Su Anda's question, he answered, "The reincarnation sect has already set off. Shi Tianfang's plan is very big. Not only did he personally set off, but the Sky Ghost Taoist, Wu Shusen, the Dark Lord, and Zhang Enrui also came with him. Among the 6 paths of reincarnation, only his own celestial Tao stayed behind to watch over the sect and to keep Mo Shu Luo in custody. In addition, the Mount Shu Sword sect and the Great Zhou dynasty have also made their moves." Su Anda nodded. "In that case, we also need to make preparations. Chu Jiang, you were also injured when you killed the disobedient officials. This time, you stay behind to watch over Yama and the others. I will leave the King of the Underworld's brush behind. You just need to cooperate with him. Bianqing, Dusher, both of you stay behind to help Chu Jiang with this matter." The 2 black-robed people on the left of King Chu Jiang were a young man and an old man. Both of them were at the first tier of the primordial spirit realm. They were King Bianqing and Dusher. Both of them bowed to Su Anda and said, "Your subordinates obey." Su Anda looked at the 2 people on the right of King Chu Jiang. "Mount Tai, Emperor Song, this time, both of you come with me." These 2 people, along with King Chu Jiang, King Bianqing and King Dusher, were the 10 Yama kings. One was called King Taishan, and the other was called Emperor Song. Like King Chu Jiang, they were both primordial spirit realm experts of the Void Return realm. Hearing Su Anda's order, they immediately bowed together. "It's our honor." Su Anda gently stroked his black beard and murmured, "This time, the timing is too good. If we can succeed in one fell swoop, even the previous big trouble will no longer be a concern." After saying that, black light surged around his body and swept up King Taishan and Emperor Song, disappearing from the hall. After watching them leave, King Chujiang, King Bianqing, and King Dusher walked to the left side hall together. There sat a young man in a black robe with golden edges. His chin was supported by his elbow, and he was resting with his eyes closed. On the table next to the black-robed young man, there was a long brush pen with a black handle and a golden tip on a wooden shelf. Its entire body was shining with brilliance. King Chujiang and the other two bowed to him. The black-robed young man didn't open his eyes and asked indifferently, "Su Anda and the others have set off?" "Yes, Your Excellency," King Chujiang answered. The black-robed young man called Ming Bai Huang nodded slightly. "Just keep an eye on equality and Zhuanlun. Leave Yama to me." "Yes." King Chujiang and the other two bowed and left the side hall. At the same time, in the Divine Land, in the southern wasteland, the void distorted as a group of experts flew towards the northwest direction. The person in the lead was a youth who looked to be only 14 or 15 years old. His face was like jade, and his appearance was elegant. He was dressed in white, and he seemed to be out of this world. It was as if he was a celestial being who had descended to this world. Behind him was an ordinary-looking elder with a medium build. He looked like an old man from the countryside. He said softly, "Sect Master, the reincarnation sect has gone all out this time. If other forces, such as the Great Zhou Empire, were to attack us, we wouldn't be able to stop them." The youth in front of the elder was the former sect master of the reincarnation sect and the current sect master of the reincarnation sect, Shi Tianfeng. 2 years ago in the vast thousand world, Shi Tianfeng took advantage of the opportunity when other forces had their eyes on the Ying Ocean sect to go all out. He integrated the reincarnation sect and dealt a heavy blow to the alliance of the Azura Path, Hell Path, and Human Path. He then subdued the latter two, leaving only the strongest Azura Path struggling. Not long ago, he successfully subdued the Azura Path and finally unified the 6 paths of reincarnation, becoming the new sect master of the reincarnation sect. This was still a secret, and most people in the outside world still didn't know about it. Although he had completed his lifelong dream, Shi Tianfeng wasn't blindly optimistic or complacent. When he heard the elder's question, he said calmly, "Of course we have to guard against the Great Zhou Empire, but we can't give up eating for fear of choking. This time, Shenmen Tianzong has changed. We can't miss this opportunity. Their white jade pillar probably hasn't been refined into a creation dharma treasure." Shi Tianfeng's tone was a little ethereal. "Compared to that white jade pillar, I value their Yujing Mountain more." The elder nodded. "That's right. Other than the cultivation of the Taoist sect master, Yujing Mountain is the foundation of Shenmen Tianzong's rise." There was a hint of fanaticism in his eyes. "If the reincarnation sect can occupy Yujing Mountain, our strength will definitely increase by leaps and bounds." This elder looked ordinary, but no one present would look down on him. This was because he was Wu Shusen, the sect master of the animal path of the 6 paths of reincarnation. His primordial soul was an expert who had returned to the void stage. Beside Wu Shusen was a middle-aged man in a Taoist robe with a stiff expression. He was one of the 6 paths of reincarnation, the sect master of the Hungry Ghost Path, the Sky Ghost Taoist. His tone was also calm and stiff, without any pause. "This time, if we obtain Yujing Mountain, even if the Taoist sect master returns to the Great Thousand Worlds, he can only sigh helplessly. He won't be able to cause trouble for the reincarnation sect. When that time comes, he should be the one being surrounded and killed by the other forces." Next to the Sky Ghost Taoist stood a middle-aged man. He looked elegant and wore a neat brocade robe. An exquisite small wine pot hung from his waist. There was also a leather bag hanging beside the wine pot. When he moved, there was a clinking sound. He carried a few small wine cups with him. He opened his mouth and said, "Although all the forces have a tacit understanding to take advantage of the disappearance of the Taoist sect master to dismember Shenmen Tianzong and weaken his strength while strengthening ourselves, in the end, what we will gain in the end will depend on our own means, just like in the battle to exterminate the Buddha." This person was Zhang Enrui, the sect master of the mortal path of the 6 paths of reincarnation. He was the key figure in Shi Tianfeng's unification of the 6 paths of reincarnation. It was because of his secret betrayal that the alliance of the Azura sect, Hell sect, and the mortal path was dissolved by Shi Tianfeng and the others. Cultivators of the mortal path cultivated the 7 emotions and 6 sensory pleasures. Their state of mind improved extremely quickly, and they had the fewest bottlenecks in the process of cultivation. Therefore, it was easier for them to cultivate compared to other reincarnation sect cultivation methods. However, relatively speaking, their actual combat ability was the weakest. Cultivators usually relied on their slightly higher cultivation and magic power to make up for their disadvantage in spells and divine powers. Zhang Enrui was one of the 3 path integration experts of the reincarnation sect. Like Shi Tianfang, his cultivation was at the path integration realm, but his actual combat ability was much weaker. Putting aside Shi Tianfang, the sect master of the Hell Path, Dark Lord, who was next to him, at the second-tier primordial soul realm. If he had the advantage and set up layers of killing arrays first, it would be hard to say who would win if Zhang Enrui fought him. However, it was precisely because of his misdirection that Mo Shuluo, the sect master of the Azura Path, made a wrong judgment and fell into Shi Tianfang's trap. In the end, he was defeated like a landslide. The Dark Lord, who had been silent all this while, looked at Zhang Enrui with an unpleasant expression. Zhang Enrui did not care. Shi Tianfang turned to look at Wu Shusen, the Dark Lord, Taoist Sky Ghost, and Zhang Enrui behind him. Silently, he said, "No matter what happened in the past, we are now representing the interests of the reincarnation sect. Our reincarnation sect has been in a state of disunity all these years, which is why we have been looked down upon. Now, it is time for us to speak out and announce to the world that the reincarnation sect has reappeared." Wu Shusen, Taoist Sky Ghost, and Zhang Enrui nodded. The Dark Lord did not speak, but he did not object either. Shi Tianfang knew that his foundation was not completely stable. If he wanted to truly integrate the 6 paths of reincarnation into the way it had been during its heyday, there was still a lot of work to be done. Strictly speaking, it was a very risky thing to expand when there was internal strife. However, Shi Tianfang was confident that he could control the situation. This time, the change in Xianmen Tianzong was a huge opportunity for Shi Tianfang. Therefore, he decisively led the other 5 paths of the reincarnation sect, excluding the heavenly path, to attack together. In fact, he also wanted to use this opportunity to continue working with the reincarnation sect. The only thing that Shi Tianfang felt regretful about was that time was still a little tight. Otherwise, if he had subdued the sect master of the Azura Path, Mo Shuluo, who was also at the Dao integration realm, he would be much more confident in this trip. After the group walked for a while, Shi Tianfang stopped in his tracks. The others also stopped in their tracks. Shi Tianfang turned to look at the Beast Path Master, Wu Shusen, and the Hell Path Master, Dark Lord. "Follow the plan." Wu Shusen nodded. "Rest assured, Sect Master." The Dark Lord did not say anything else. He turned and left with Wu Shusen. After the Dark Lord and Wu Shusen left, the people of the reincarnation sect continued on their journey. Almost at the same time, at the border of the Great Zhou Empire and the Great Qin Empire, a crack appeared in the sky, and an old man with white hair and a ruddy complexion walked out. It was the sect master of the Eastern Heaven Gate, Xiao Dongtian. He turned to look at Xiao Qingqing behind him. "I'm going." This time, the forces of the various families will join forces to destroy the Xian realm. If things go smoothly, the Eastern Heaven Gate will not only be able to take back all the things we lost in the Ying Ocean, but we will also be able to advance further. Xiao Dongtian did not say what would happen if things did not go smoothly, but Xiao Qingqing naturally understood. However, they had received many benefits from the Great Zhou Empire previously. This time they had to give it their all. The Great Zhou Empire was restrained by the Great Qin Empire, and in turn, the Great Qin Empire was restrained too. The Eastern Heaven Gate was a mobile force that the Great Zhou Empire could use. This time, other than Xiao Dongtian, the Great Elder of the Eastern Heaven Gate, who was at the Void Reversion Realm, and Dao Master Dongming, who had assisted Xiao Dongtian in establishing the Eastern Heaven Gate, would also follow Xiao Dongtian to Kunlun Mountain. Xiao Qingqing and another cultivator at the first tier of the primordial spirit realm were left to guard the sect. Xiao Qingqing said, "I wish Father and Martial Uncle Dongming success." Xiao Dongtian and Dao Master Dongming, who was also white-haired and had a white beard, nodded at the same time. Without saying anything, they turned and stepped into the void again. Like the underworld hall, the Reincarnation Sect, and the Great Zhou Empire, the Mount Shu Sword Sect naturally received the news as well. On the main peak of Mount Shu, a rainbow of sword aura streaked across the sky and rushed toward the northwest. As for swordsman Guan Chong, swordsman Little Shang, and the others who had picked up the injured swordsman Lunar and the other two, they had originally planned to return to Shushan. After receiving the news from their sects, they looked at each other, their eyes flashing with coldness. Elder Jie is already on his way. Even the twin sky peaks in the Mystic Heaven realm, which is closest to this area, won't be able to protect them. Retribution has to happen quickly. If that's the case, why bother returning to Mount Shu? Let's go and settle the score with that little thief from Xianmen Tianzong. The few great sword cultivators immediately turned into sword auras and chased after Xiao Yan and the others. Chapter 8:35. Evacuate the people in the Shentian realm. There's no need to say anything. Just take away all their magic power. In the void, Xiao Yan, Zen Master Dade, and the others talked as they flew. Send them to Cloud Mirror City first, and then hide in the Ying Sea through the void matrix there. Cloud Mirror City can already take refuge first. The enemies have been testing us one after another. Obviously, they're already interested in Xianmen Tianzong. Now that the news from Golden Cicada has spread, those who want to attack will no longer have any scruples and will attack immediately. Xiao Yan said in a low voice, "We brothers will defend Yujing Mountain to the death. We will not retreat unless we have no other choice. A war is inevitable, and Cloud Mirror City will inevitably be affected. Before the dust settles on Yujing Mountain, no one will have any thoughts about the Shentian realm. After all, the resource development in the Shentian realm is a long-term matter, but we need to be careful of deliberate sabotage. The things don't matter, but the people. The people in the Shentian realm are loyal to our sect, and many of them have families. If they are slaughtered by the enemy, even if they take revenge in the future, they won't be able to come back to life. Perhaps they will be destroyed by the angry enemy, but in the current situation, we can only prepare for the worst. We can only try to concentrate our strength and protect Yujing Mountain first." Zen Master Dade nodded. "Amitba, Elder Xiao is right. I will contact Mr. Liang Ji now. I will leave the contact with Elder Zhu of Yujing Mountain to you." Xiao Yan's eyes narrowed slightly. Third junior brother and the others are already on their way back. I hope they can be faster than the enemy, or I'm afraid second junior brother will have to break out of seclusion in advance. But if that happens, if the enemy has a magic treasure of creation or an expert in the Dharma-ending realm, the situation will be very dangerous. He looked in the direction of Yujing Mountain in the distance. The enemy's situation is unknown. I don't know how many enemies there are and what level they are at. I sincerely hope that my decision this time is not making a fuss and being overly cautious. In that case, even if the disciples and people laugh at me behind my back, it's better than making unnecessary sacrifices when the enemy is really pressing down on the city. Zen Master Dade glanced at Xiao Yan. This valiant youth was as brave as ever, but Lin Feng's many years of experience had taught him the importance of responsibility. He was not impulsive and reckless. His blood was still burning hot, but his mind could remain calm. Slowly, he said, "At the very least, the Shushan Sword Sect will definitely make a move this time. It's just that I don't know how many experts will come." Just now, the Grand Yin swordsman had the intention of defending and waiting for reinforcements. Presumably, the experts of Shu Mountain had already left the mountain and rushed over. Now that they have received the news, I'm afraid that they will directly chase after us and harm us. Fortunately, the Mystic Heaven realm is right in front of us. We'll be able to save some time with the void teleportation formation. Xiao Yan nodded. Just as he was about to speak, his expression suddenly changed. At the same time, Zen Master Dade's expression also changed. He hurriedly dodged to the side. Xiao Yan also quickly dodged. In the void behind them, an incomparably domineering and vigorous sword light directly obliterated the infinite space, attacking the back of Xiao Yan and Zen Master Dade. Xiao Yan and Monk Dade dodged this powerful sword aura left and right, But this sword aura instantly changed from extreme hardness to extreme softness. The sharp and condensed cold sword aura that seemed to be a substance suddenly turned into clouds and mist, attacking the two of them from the left and right. Gloomy black demonic fire appeared. Xiao Yan grunted and used the Tribulation Flame Green Dragon Mystique, using the Mystic Heaven Tribulation Flame to devour the other's soft sword chi. Zen Master Dade also used the Buddhist Infinite Light Buddha Sutra's immortality, manifesting boundless light to block the enemy's attack. Xiao Yan's Heaven and Earth Dharma Idol and Zen Master Dade's Infinite Light Buddha Dharma body both manifested at the first instant. Even so, the two felt immense pressure. The incoming Grand Yin sword was on a completely different level from the previous Grand Yin swordsman. The dense and soft sword energy penetrated the Tribulation Flame Azure Dragon one by one, and it quickly bound it. Although the Mystic Heaven Tribulation Flame was still devouring the other's sword chi, it was extremely tough. The Mystic Heaven Tribulation Flame had to spend a lot of effort to make it its own. But there was just too much sword chi. Even though the Mystic Heaven Tribulation Flame was rapidly growing as it devoured the sword chi, it was still like trying to put out a cup of water on a burning cart of firewood. Xiao Yan grunted. He could increase the power of the Mystic Heaven Tribulation Flame further, but that would exceed the scope of his ability and cause the Mystic Heaven Tribulation Flame to lose control. With a whistling sound, the Evil Glory Overlord sword appeared in Xiao Yan's palm. With a swing of the sword, Xiao Yan used the huge sword, which was as wide as a door, as a shield in front of him to block the torrential sword chi. The Evil Glory Overlord sword shook violently, and small holes appeared on the surface of the sword. It was obviously caused by the dense and terrifying sword rain. With a buzzing sound, a blood-red crack suddenly appeared on the blade of the sword, revealing an incomparably terrifying scene of doomsday. The Netherworld Evil Brilliance, the Blood River True Water, the 9 underworlds Evil Wind, and other endless calamities and tribulations rose one after another, setting off a continuous and terrifying storm. "It's really the Netherworld Sea?" someone in the void exclaimed. The sword chi, which were as soft as thin threads, did not get sucked in by the terrifying suction force of the Nether Sea. Instead, they made a turn in midair and moved in mysterious arcs, avoiding the suction force. On the other side, Zen Master Dade was in a miserable state. He could only rely on his Buddhist Dharma to resist the opponent's attack. Countless thin sword chi stabbed deeply into Zen Master Dade's infinite light Tathagata Dharma body, causing the dignified Tathagata Dharma body to look like a long-haired monster. A hoarse and old voice came from the void. "If you don't reach the pure land of ultimate bliss and cultivate the Amitabha infinite light, no matter how diligently you cultivate the infinite light Tathagata Sutra, you won't be able to defend against my moon sword." Countless thin thread-like sword chi gathered together and gradually surrounded Zen Master Dade like a cloud, continuously attacking him. Xiao Yan wanted to help Zen Master Dade out, but the opponent's sword chi attacked him again. The soft and misty moon sword suddenly changed, turning into a bright golden sword light that was like a pillar in the sky. It stabilized the sea and held up the sky, righteous and vast. One of the 6 meridian swords of Mount Shu, Xiaoyang's sword. This sword was the most righteous and peaceful. It wasn't ostentatious or sharp, but it was as heavy as a mountain. It was the most difficult to cultivate, but once cultivated, it would be flawless. When the sword stabbed over, even the terrifying suction of the Netherworld Sea on the Evil Glory Overlord sword couldn't do anything. At this moment, a towering mountain that was thousands of feet tall suddenly appeared in the void. It was snow-white and looked like ice crystals. Red flames could be vaguely seen jumping fiercely. Hot steam rose from the top of the mountain, thick smoke billowed, and endless flames and magma spurted out. Beside the mouth of the volcano stood a white-robed middle-aged man. He had a head of fiery red hair and a pair of sword-like eyebrows that were snow-white like frost. He squatted down and lightly patted the top of the mountain with his palm. The huge mountain fell down and dispersed the endless sword chi that surrounded Zen Master Dade. It was the other powerful expert that Xianmen Tianzong had stationed in the Shintian realm, the double pole sky peak, a Mahayana-grade Dharma treasure. The Xiaoyang sword that was originally attacking Xiao Yan suddenly changed direction and flashed in the void, turning into a cold light. Its speed was extremely fast. Not only did it surpass space, but it also seemed like it could not be measured by time. Shushan's 6 Meridian Sword, Xiaoyang Sword. With a flash of cold light, it was already in front of the Double Pole Sky Peak's Dharma treasure, Prime Spirit Peak. It was actually going to kill the primordial spirit of the Double Pole Sky Peak with lightning speed. Fortunately, the Double Pole Sky Peak had also expected the other party to be able to switch between the Xiaoyang Sword and Xiaoyang Sword at will. Before the other party could make a move, he had already made the first move. His whole body merged into the Double Pole Sky Peak under his feet, and then he used his Dharma treasure to clash head-on with the other party's Xiaoyang Sword. Amidst the loud boom, although the Double Pole Sky Peak was not damaged and left with a sword mark, the huge mountain was actually pushed back by the opponent. Xiao Yan and Zen Master Dade, who had just escaped, felt their hearts sink when they saw this. The other party's strength was truly astonishing. He had injured Zen Master Dade almost immediately, and then used the Xiaoyang sword, which was not known for pure offensive power, to push the Double Pole Sky Peak back. In the void, a tall and thin old man walked out slowly with his hands behind his back. He stared at the Double Pole Sky Peak and said, "Ever since you entered Xianmen Tianzong, you have always been in the Xianmen realm. Only about 20 years have passed in this realm, but you have improved a lot. It seems like the master of the Taoist mystic sect did not mistreat you." His voice was as ear-piercing as metal rubbing against each other. "I thought that my strike just now would leave a mark on your body. I did not expect your improvement to exceed this old man's expectations." The Double Pole Sky Peak shook slightly and sent a voice transmission to Xiao Yan and Zen Master Dade. "Leave quickly. This old man is the Grand Elder of the Shushan Sword Sect, Xie Luosher. He is a great sword cultivator at the 3rd tier of the Primordial Spirit Integration Realm. I'm not his match. I can only try my best to delay him." As he spoke, a cloud of white icy mist suddenly descended from the Double Pole Sky Peak and landed in front of Xiao Yan and Zen Master Dade. "Everyone related to my sect in the Xianmen realm has been swept away by my magic power. They are all here. Hurry to the Void Teleportation Array. If you stay here, when the battle reaches a critical moment, I might not be able to protect them. When the time comes, all of you will die." The void beside Xie Luosher split open. Venerable Swordsman Little Shang and Venerable Swordsman Guanchong also stepped out. Behind them followed Venerable Swordsman Ning Lang and Venerable Swordsman Heavy Mist. Venerable Swordsman Little Shang said in a low voice, "Want to run? How can it be that easy?" With a flip of his palm, a huge, broad sword appeared in the void. The sword was bright and resplendent, but also cold and piercingly cold. It was as if it was formed from endless sword light that was constantly condensing and compressing. The length of the sword was a full 5 feet, and the width of the blade was 1.5 feet. An endlessly domineering and fierce aura emanated from it. Shushan's Xiaoyang swordplay lineage's inheritance treasure, one of the 6 Meridian's immortal swords, the Little Shang sword. On the other side, Venerable Swordsman Guanchong was silent. A slightly smaller immortal sword that was also 7 feet long appeared in his hand. It was jet black from head to toe and did not have any luster. The sword's edge was not sharp, but it was extremely heavy. It looked like a long, narrow, and thick iron plate. It was simple and unadorned, but it was the inheritance treasure of Shushan's Guanchong lineage's inheritance treasure, the Guanchong sword of the 6 Meridian's immortal swords. Chapter 8:36. Seeing the Little Shang sword and the Guanchong sword, the complexion of Buddhist monk Dade grew increasingly grave. These 2 swords were the 6 Meridian immortal swords of Mount Shu. After many years of sacrificial refinement by the successors of Mount Shu's Shaoshang sword and Guanchong sword, they were continuously strengthened. Furthermore, they were worshipped by countless disciples of Mount Shu. Both of them were magic treasures at the pinnacle of the incarnation grade. In the entire divine land, they were also at the peak of the incarnation grade magic treasures. As a sword Dharma treasure, it was even sharper and had the power to slash the heavens and split the earth. Sword Venerable Guanchong's void reversion Dharma body had been shattered by Lin Feng during the sword trial on Heaven's Path Peak, causing him to fall to the first tier of the Essence Soul realm. Although he was still the leader of Guanchong's sword lineage, he was unable to unleash the full power of the Guanchong sword. But the Little Shang Venerable Swordsman was able to unleash the power of the Little Shang sword to the limit. Becoming one with the sword, he could even break through the limit, producing an effect that was greater than 2. In fact, even Venerable Swordsman Guanchong was not to be underestimated with the Guanchong sword in hand. He rarely met a worthy opponent at the first tier of the Essence Soul realm. And on the side of the Little Shang sword Venerable, the Little Shang sword was originally the most ferocious and tyrannical of the 6 meridians of Shushan. It was the most open lineage, and was most proficient in forceful attacks. If Dhyana Master Dade had the Buddha's heart lamp of immeasurable light in his hands, he could just barely put up a fight. But at this moment he did not have the treasure lamp, and he was already heavily injured by the falling rocks. The current Zen Master Dade, even if he were to face Venerable Swordsman Guanchong who had the Guanchong sword, he would have to be careful. Feng Liangji was too busy dealing with the falling rocks. Now that Sword Master Xiaoshang and Sword Master Guanchong had come up, he was powerless to help Xiao Yan and Dade Chancher. The Little Shang sword saint let out an angry roar. The Little Shang sword, in his hand pointed forward, instantly emitting a sword cry that shook the heavens. A vigorous and violent sword light, like a river of stars, cut through the air, heading towards Xiao Yan and Buddhist monk Dade. Xiao Yan pushed the white cloud that carried the lives of thousands of people to Zen Master Dade. Let's go first. Send them back to Cloud Mirror City. In the next instant, the desolate and tyrannical bluish-purple flames that filled the sky filled the originally pitch-black void, transforming into the image of a white tiger, charging towards Sword Venerable Little Shang. The void sky faintly cracked open, and the white tiger's 7 mansions in the sea of stars flickered together. Xiao Yan transformed into the evil radiance white tiger, and there seemed to be 7 spots of starlight lighting up in his body. The evil, glorious, tyrannical sword howled as it was swung out, becoming one with the image of the white tiger. Xiao Yan pushed the power of the evil, glorious white tiger chop of his 4 symbols martial path to the extreme, meeting Venerable Swordsman Xiaoshang's similarly tyrannical and fierce Xiaoshang sword. Unlike the previous battle with the extreme Yin sword, the 2 ferocious sword Daos clashed head-on. The nether evil flame was the first type of true fire that Xiao Yan had mastered. It was one of the assets that he had built his empire on. It was also the true fire that he had cultivated the most and controlled the most. The evil radiance overlord sword contained a huge amount of netherworld evil flame. However, it had always been sealed. Only when Xiao Yan's cultivation became higher and higher would he be able to draw out more netherworld evil flame. It was originally the king of all flames. Its pure destructive power was something that even the other 6 great true fires had to retreat from. In this strike, Xiao Yan completely released his control. He completely released his own true fire and the nether evil flame within the evil glorious tyrannical sword, not holding anything back. He gave up control, gave up restraint. He only wanted to be more tyrannical, more ferocious, more powerful, more incisively exploding and exploding again. Other than destructive power, it was still destructive power. Endless netherworld evil flame exploded from Xiao Yan's sword, completely turning half the void into a sea of fire. As the sword fell, it left behind a crack in the void, as if it was a wound of the heavens. The 2 sides collided. The evil glorious white tiger was completely shattered. It was not dismembered into thousands of pieces, but it had directly lost its form. The terrifying Xiaoshang sword had destroyed the foundation of its martial will. Endless blue and purple demonic flames danced in all directions. And the majestic sword light of the Xiaoshang sword, that was like the Milky Way, was also shattered, turning into streams of light that shot in all directions. But even if it was shattered, the terrifying streams of light were still terrifying sword lights that caused the vast majority of cultivators below the primordial spirit realm to tremble in fear. And in this sky full of shattered streams of light, a cold light flashed, becoming more and more dazzling. It was the little Shang sword, the little Shang sword, gripped with both hands, stabbing toward Xiao Yan. Above Xiao Yan's head, the heaven and earth Dharma idol appeared. The netherworld evil flame turned into a blue and purple head, its expression overbearing, roaring towards the sky. The netherworld evil flame that filled the air constantly exploded, continuously bombarding the blade of the little Shang sword. On the evil glorious overlord sword, the crack in the netherworld sea opened once again, the scene of doomsday inside. The blue and purple netherworld evil flame was boundlessly tyrannical, wreaking havoc between the heavens and earth, destroying everything in its path. Xiao Yan seemed to have opened the door to the 9 hells of purgatory, drawing the endless calamities and tribulations into the vast 1,000 worlds. It was not enough to wreak havoc in the netherworld sea. Large amounts of netherworld evil flame began to surge out from the crack in the netherworld sea, descending into the void in front of him. In these past years, Xiao Yan had been cultivating in seclusion. Apart from the explosive growth of his own magic power, his understanding and control of the evil glorious overlord sword had also increased. The violent blue and purple demonic flames were endless, constantly bombarding the little Shang sword and the little Shang sword. In the end, the tyrannical little Shang sword began to tremble. This was the poison and calamity of the netherworld sea. The little Shang sword's expression became a little more serious. With a low shout, his entire body radiated sword light, transforming into a powerful sword-wielding man. He was 10 feet tall, holding a giant sword in his hand. His face was dignified and his eyes were like lightning. This was the little Shang sword, finally going all out. He manifested his void return Dharma idol and controlled the little Shang sword, wanting to kill Xiao Yan in one battle. The little Shang sword, in his hand, also increased in size, becoming more than 20 feet long. It was grasped by the little Shang sword that had transformed into a giant. With a shake of the blade, the surrounding netherworld evil flame was cut apart. As Xiao Yan faced off against the little Shang sword, Monk Dade chanted a Buddhist chant, and with a white cloud he turned and left. Li Yuanfang, Jie Yu, and the others were also swept away by Monk Dade's magic power, but they could still see what was happening outside. Jie Yu's expression was extremely grave. Although it is not the little Yang sword, or little Zhe sword, the little Shang sword still has the little Shang sword in his hand, and there are others helping him. Elder Xiao, can he do it? The 6 meridians of Shushan all had their advantages and disadvantages. Xiao Yan's mystiques and battle style matched up, and his favorite opponent was the Great Yin sword, which gave him a considerable advantage. Against the little Shang sword and the Void Return Realm Venerable Guanchong, he did not like it, but he was not worried either. It was hard to predict the outcome. If the opponent defended with all his strength, he might not have 100% chance of breaking through. But if Venerable Guanchong defended with all his strength, he would not be able to counterattack Xiao Yan. Against the little Shang sword and the Fierce Li sword, everyone would have to fight head-on, and sparks would fly in all directions. The result was very likely that both sides would be heavily injured. And what Xiao Yan was least adept at dealing with were the little Yang sword and little Zhe sword. At this moment, if the little Zhe sword, Venerable Guanchong, came here with the little Shang sword, the situation would be even worse. Li Yuanfang's expression was calm, and he said in a low voice, "I believe in eldest senior brother." At this moment, Monk Dade could only choose to believe in Xiao Yan. He was already heavily injured, and even if he wanted to cover the retreat, he did not have the strength to do so. He could only listen to Xiao Yan's arrangements and immediately leave with the White Cloud, Li Yuanfang, and the others. At this time, they could not afford to be sloppy or entangled. Otherwise, it would only cause Xiao Yan and Feng Biangji to face danger for nothing, wasting the time they had bought. On the contrary, if he left quickly, Xiao Yan and Feng Biangji would not have anything to worry about, and they could instead seek an opportunity to escape. However, Monk Dade wanted to leave, but Venerable Guanchong did not allow it. With a shake of the Guanchong sword, he had already rushed forward. A solemn black light appeared on the pitch-black sword, like a black hole, bearing the weight of a world. Then, it aged, collapsed, and was destroyed. Dade, who allowed you to leave? Although the sword light was only it was so heavy that it seemed to condense a world within it. Visually, Venerable Guanchong's sword seemed to be extremely slow. Not to mention great sword cultivators at the primordial divinity stage, even ordinary people seemed to be faster than him. However, it was this sword that seemed to cause Monk Dade's movements to become even slower than his. He could not dodge and could only turn around to receive his sword. I let him leave, what are you going to do? Amidst the roar, a vermilion bird that was completely golden in color, like a blazing sun, instantly streaked across the void and landed in front of Venerable Guanchong. It was Xiao Yan, who had used the heavenly radiant vermilion bird body to chase after him. He had actually given up on the evil radiant overlord sword and used the savage demon fire that constantly surged out from the crevices in the netherworld sea on the evil radiant overlord sword to temporarily hold back Venerable Guanchong. Then, using the advantage of his movement technique speed, he sprinted over and arrived in front of Venerable Guanchong. Xiao Yan did not stand on ceremony at all. With a flip of his palm, a golden and milky white lotus appeared. The red and blue stamens on the lotus constantly swayed. The domineering three-fire lotus landed on Venerable Guanchong's head. Venerable Guanchong's wooden eyes suddenly flashed with a cold light. With a turn of his sword, he used the Guanchong sword to meet Xiao Yan's celestial fire lotus. He was only at the first tier of the primordial divinity stage. If he allowed the three-fire lotus to explode on his body, he would be lucky not to die. Almost at the same time that Xiao Yan attacked Venerable Guanchong, the void suddenly split open. Venerable Guanchong had already rushed behind him. But the sword Dao that he was using now was not the Shaoshang sword treasure, but the Shaozi sword treasure. Even the Shushan sword cultivator Lu Yang of the Golden Elixir period had cultivated both the Shaoshang and Shaozi swords. The number of 6 pulse sword treasures that Venerable Guanchong cultivated would only be greater. The 6 pulse sword treasures of Shushan were of the same chi and branch, and they came from the same source. Cultivating them simultaneously would allow one to comprehend them by analogy. It was impossible for any great sword cultivator at the primordial divinity stage to only know one type. It was just that the sword Dao that they cultivated simultaneously was not as profound as the Dao validation art. Xiao Yan gave up on the evil radiant overlord sword to temporarily hold back Venerable Guanchong. Then, he used the speed advantage of his heavenly radiant vermilion bird body to try and stop Venerable Guanchong. Venerable Guanchong beat him at his own game. In an instant he used the Shaozi sword treasure, shook off the evil radiant overlord sword, and charged at Xiao Yan. Venerable Guanchong's sword stance changed, and the Shaozi sword treasure changed back to the Shaoshang sword treasure that he was most proficient in. Violent sword light rose and fell, cleaving down on Xiao Yan's head. At the same time, Venerable Guanchong, Venerable Swordsman of Broken Mountain Ninglang, and Venerable Swordsman Heavy Mist all continued to chase after Monk Dade. None of you can even think of getting past me. Xiao Yan's voice was like spring thunder. With a loud shout, a tall giant suddenly appeared and pounced at Venerable Swordsman of Broken Mountain Ninglang. This giant emitted a majestic chi and blood that was as hot as the sun. It was the god-slaying puppet that Xiao Yan had seized from Marke Jinghuan. This puppet had already been completely refined by Xiao Yan. It roared and pounced at Ninglang. Even if it was no match for Ninglang, it could still hold him back and prevent him from chasing after Monk Dade. At the same time, the black light that filled the sky swirled and directly swept Venerable Swordsman Heavy Mist into it. Within the black light, a large flag fluttered in the wind. It was the indestructible imperial flag. Chapter 8:37. The immortal imperial flag had a high degree of autonomy. At the critical moment when Xiao Yan was fighting Sword Venerable Little Shang, he would not leave his back to Sword Venerable Little Shang, but there was no problem using it to trap Venerable Swordsman Heavy Mist. Although Xiao Yan could not unleash the full power of this magic treasure, Venerable Swordsman Heavy Mist would not be able to escape in a short period of time. In this instant, Sword Venerable Little Shang's violent sword light had already descended. If this sword struck, even if Xiao Yan did not die, he would at least lose half his life. If this sword strike landed on the immortal imperial flag, it might even directly annihilate its primordial spirit. And facing this sword, Xiao Yan's figure abruptly swayed in the air. The next instant, thousands of Xiao Yans appeared in all directions. The Xiao Yan at the bottom of Sword Venerable Little Shang's sword shattered, turning into a shadow. Primordial Dark Emperor's peerless divine ability, solitary shadow body. Sword Venerable Guanchang's vision blurred, and 2 or 3 Xiao Yans appeared in front of him, once again blocking his path. Sword Venerable Guanchong swept out with his sword, destroying the 2 or 3 Xiao Yans, but 4 more Xiao Yans appeared behind him, attacking him together. One of them suddenly raised its palm, and a 3-colored fire lotus silently resided in its palm. The violent flames swayed behind him, and Sword Venerable Guanchong was suddenly alarmed. He did not have time to turn around, and could only use his Guanchong sword to block the 3 fire lotus in time. His Guanchong sword was the strongest in defense among the 6 pulse swords. If he was still at the 2nd tier of the primordial spirit realm, even without the Guanchong sword he would not fear Xiao Yan's 3 fire lotus. But now that he had hastily dealt with it, his primordial spirit trembled. Solitary shadow body? Venerable Swordsman Little Shang was first taken aback, somewhat out of his expectations. But soon after he gave a cold laugh. The Little Shang sword in his hand flashed, changing from hard to soft. The fiercest of the 6 meridian swords, the Little Shang sword, became the softest and softest of swords, the extreme Yin sword. Sword qi in the form of clouds and mist filled the air, slashing at Xiao Yan's 1,000 doppelgangers at the same time. No matter if it was the primordial Emperor of Darkness or the middle-aged Shadow Path, they were both famous figures. The solitary shadow body was a technique that was written in history. How could the revered swordsman of Little Shang not have heard of it? If he wanted to break the solitary shadow body, he would have to rely on his advantage in terms of strength. He would use AoE attacks to forcefully attack, and his true body and doppelganger would sweep out together. First, he used the Great Yin sword to trap Xiao Yan's many doppelgangers. The sword energy of the Little Shang, revered swordsman, immediately changed back from being extremely soft to extremely hard. The Great Yin sword once again became the Little Shang sword that he had used to prove his Dao. Right now, you still have the leisure to care about Dada? The violent sword light that was like a river of stars extended out, as if it was an infinitely long sword. The Little Shang, revered swordsman Little Shang swung his sword, destroying all of the doppelgangers of Xiao Yan. Who would have thought that Xiao Yan was not afraid at all? Thousands of him laughed coldly in the air at the same time. Terrifying 3-colored fire lotuses appeared in the air one after another, laying down the yin-yang burning heaven formation, surrounding the Little Shang, revered swordsman Little Shang. The terrifying true fire yin and yang began to revolve, unceasingly pressuring the Little Shang, revered swordsman Little Shang, who was in the center, giving him a strong pressure. In the distance, the god-slaying puppet was already at a disadvantage. When the god-slaying puppet, revered swordsman Ning Lang of Broken Mountain saw this scene, the sword in his hand instantly trembled. He remembered the scene when Xiao Yan had used this formation to deal with the Great Yin, revered swordsman Little Shang. If it were not for the fact that the Great Yin, revered swordsman Little Shang had acted to defend, if it were him or the Great Yin, revered swordsman Heavy Mist, they would not have been able to bear the consequences. But the Little Shang, revered swordsman Little Shang, was not ordinary, and he also had the Little Shang sword in his hand. The power of the Little Shang sword was pushed to the limit by him. His Dharma body fused directly with the Little Shang revered swordsman primordial spirit was imbued with the Little Shang, revered swordsman Little Shang. He became one with the sword, transforming into an unprecedentedly majestic sword light that slashed towards Xiao Yan's yin-yang burning heaven formation. The power of this sword seemed as if it could truly split the heavens and split the earth. The first sword that Jie Luosher had used when he first appeared was also the Little Shang sword. But as this sword slashed out, the sword energy did not stop. It was a declaration and not an attack. It was to tell Xiao Yan and Buddhist Master Dida that he had arrived. Only the Little Shang sword that had transformed into the Great Yin sword was the true attack. But at this moment, even if Jie Luosher used the Little Shang sword, even if he used his bare hands and did not use the Little Shang sword, it still might not be much stronger than the sword that sort of the Little Shang, revered swordsman Little Shang had in his primordial spirit. This was the limit that a cultivator at the second tier of the primordial spirit realm could reach when using the Little Shang sword. Space completely distorted. The cold light that resembled a silver river pierced through the heavens and earth, continuing to condense and compress. Finally, it transformed into a beam of cold light that was tens of thousands of feet long, tearing apart Xiao Yan's yin-yang burning heaven formation. Countless blazing flames wildly exploded, continuously bombarding the sword light that sword venerable Little Shang had transformed into. The terrifying might that could burn the heavens and boil the seas constantly weakened sword venerable Little Shang's sword intent. But this sword strike of sword venerable Little Shang cut through all the obstacles, forcefully carving out a path in the sea of flames. The violent sword light tore through the sea of flames, rushing in front of Xiao Yan. A five-colored radiance flashed above Xiao Yan's head. A black token appeared. On the token, 5 characters were engraved according to the positions of the 5 elements: Tai, Shi, Gu, Xia, and Chong. At this moment, the 5 characters ignited with blazing flames. The Tai character was blue and purple. It was the netherworld demonic flame. At this moment, it was located in the west and was of the metal attribute. The Chong character was leaping with black flames. It was the profound heaven tribulation flame. At this moment, it was located in the east and was of the wood attribute. The Gu character was leaping with golden flames. The flames were like needles. It was the true fire of the sun. At this moment, it was located in the south and was of the fire attribute. The pure gold Nanmingli fire that flickered with red and blue radiance occupied the Xia character. At this moment, it was located in the north and was of the water attribute. The final Chi character was a milky white true fire of the sun. At the center, it was located in the earth attribute. The wills of the 5 emperors had been refined and nourished by Xiao Yan's 5 great true fires. At this moment, they were completely activated. The 5 elements transformed, their strength constantly fusing together. They transformed into balls of 5-colored treasured light that gradually fused together, finally condensing into a scarlet beam of light. This scarlet beam of light drove the 5 divine tokens to descend, blocking in front of Xiao Yan. It helped him withstand the tyrannical sword strike of sword venerable Little Shang. The violent sword light roared and howled. The scarlet red light of the 5 divine tokens flickered incessantly, as if they would shatter at any moment. If it were not for the fact that the yin-yang burning heaven array had already worn down its strength, this sword strike would have instantly destroyed the 5 divine tokens. But even so, it could only temporarily block sword venerable Little Shang. Xiao Yan could clearly feel that he had used up a lot of his magic power. Although he had obtained the upper hand in the battle with sword venerable Little Shang, he had already used up a large amount of his magic power. Thanks to the cloud forest tree that Lin Feng had given him, he was able to recover his battle strength in a short period of time. But after so many years of cultivation, the essence energy contained in the cloud forest tree was almost completely used up. At this moment, it was an even more intense battle. He relied on all kinds of powerful abilities and treasures to fight one against many. The price was that there was a possibility that he would run out of energy at any moment. At that time, the situation of the battle would inevitably take a turn for the worse. A cold light flashed in Xiao Yan's eyes. Seeing that sword, Venerable Little Shang was about to break through the barrier of the 5 divine tokens, he suddenly waved his hand. The evil radiant tyrannical sword that he had given up and sent flying by sword Venerable Little Shang into the void suddenly appeared in front of the two of them. Seeing this, sword Venerable Little Shang frowned in his heart. When he had sent the evil radiant tyrannical sword flying, he was confident that he had already destroyed the magic power, divine sense, and martial intent that Xiao Yan had gathered within it. That huge black sword should be like an ownerless object at this moment. But at this moment, Xiao Yan waved his hand. The evil radiant tyrannical sword was enveloped in a dark evil light, slashing towards the sword light formed by sword Venerable Little Shang's primordial spirit. But at this time, a black light lit up. The target was Xiao Yan. It was sword Venerable Guanchong riding the Guanchong sword. Being delayed by Xiao Yan, Zen Master Dade had already escaped. Even if sword Venerable Guanchong wanted to chase, it was already too late. His originally wooden eyes were now filled with a cold light. Sword Venerable Little Shang snorted in dissatisfaction. Guanchong. Sword Venerable Guanchong did not reply, but the black light on the tip of the Guanchong sword became more and more intense. In the entire Shushan, the person who had the deepest hatred for Xianmen Tianzong was sword Venerable Guanchong, whose Dharma body had been shattered by Lin Feng years ago. Now that he was being obstructed by Xiao Yan, his killing intent surged. The Guanchong sword, which was as heavy as a mountain, attacked Xiao Yan with an extremely terrifying might. Xiao Yan let out a wild roar, like a mad tiger. Let's fight. Do you think I'm afraid of you? He raised his right palm, and a sea of true fire appeared above his head. The azure dragon, white tiger, vermilion bird, and black tortoise floated in the sea of fire. As the light and shadow flickered, Xiao Yan's powerful martial intent almost became real. A virtual and illusory starry sky appeared, and the 28 constellations in the starry sky were dazzling. The distant sky seemed to have opened up, and the real 28 constellations in the sea of stars also seemed to have become dazzling. They stood in 4 directions, and there were 7 constellations in each direction. They shone with the starry sky in the illusory realm created by Xiao Yan's martial intent. For a moment, Xiao Yan vaguely felt that there was a trace of real star power supporting him, and it was not just a simple resonance like before. This caused Xiao Yan's power to continue to rise. The endless true fire and the illusory realm of stars collapsed together with his right palm. It was as if the world was collapsing. 4 symbols Milky Way palm. With this palm, Xiao Yan did not defend at all. He attacked the head of sword Venerable Guanchong. Sword Venerable Guanchong's expression suddenly changed. He changed the momentum of his sword and pointed the tip of his sword at Xiao Yan's palm. Boom! With a loud sound, the Guanchong sword in sword Venerable Guanchong's hand let out a cry and was sent flying out of his hand. Several cracks even appeared on the sturdy body of the sword, and the sword light instantly dimmed. A treasure at the peak of the incarnation realm was almost shattered by Xiao Yan's palm. And Xiao Yan's right palm has been pierced through. There are even countless terrifying bloody scars continuously extending from the hole in his palm to the surrounding areas. However, after the terrifying prowess of the 4 symbols Milky Way palm sent sword Venerable Guanchong flying, it did not stop. Raging flames and starlight rained down, causing sword Venerable Guanchong's primordial spirit to be covered in wounds. The left half of the primordial spirit's human form was completely smashed by Xiao Yan's palm. On the other side, although sword Venerable Guanchong was displeased that sword Venerable Guanchong had interfered in his battle, he did not dare to hold back. Otherwise, sword Venerable Guanchong would die in Xiao Yan's hands. The ferocious and sharp sword Venerable Guanchong's power once again surged, and the evil radiant overlord sword that was attacking him from the side flew away. The violent and overbearing power also sent the 5 divine badges, which already had cracks on them, flying. Then, the sword attacked Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan let out a low roar, and like a clap of thunder, the god-slaying puppet suddenly abandoned Ning Lang. Paying the price of having one of its arms cut off by Ning Lang, it madly rushed to Xiao Yan's side and blocked the sword for him. The indestructible and ferocious sword Venerable Guanchong directly split the god-slaying puppet in half from head to toe. However, with this slight obstruction, the pure Yang True Fire, True Sun Fire, Nether Evil Radiant Fire, and Nanming Li Fire, the four great true fires simultaneously manifested, gathered, and compressed in front of Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan stared at sword Venerable Guanchong, and instead revealed a smile on his face. However, no matter how one looked at it, it seemed cruel and violent. Come, let's see who dies first. Chapter 8:38. This battle with Venerable Swordsman Guanchong and Venerable Swordsman Xiaoshang was the most desperate battle Xiao Yan had ever fought since he had formed his nascent soul, but it also allowed him to constantly break through himself, constantly improving himself in battle. His valiant blood chi and battle talent were completely stimulated, making him stronger. The stronger he met, the braver he became. Countless seals and incantations were thrown into the flames by Xiao Yan at an unprecedented speed. Immediately afterwards, the raging flames suddenly calmed down. A three-layered lotus appeared between Xiao Yan and Venerable Swordsman Xiaoshang. The bottom layer was milky white, the middle layer was pure gold, and the top layer was violet blue. The center of the lotus sparkled with golden light, a red and a basket of stamens swaying. The fusion of four flames, the celestial flaming lotus. The terrifying four-colored flaming lotus swayed in the air, like a delicate lotus flower. But a terrifying aura spread out, causing even Venerable Swordsman Xiaoshang, who had the little Shang sword in his hand, to feel a chill. He let out a low roar, dispelling all distracting thoughts. The violent little Shang sword continued to be pushed to its limit, slashing towards Xiao Yan, wanting to first kill Xiao Yan on the spot. The four-colored lotus and the starry river of sword light brushed past each other. They did not come into contact with each other, both rushing towards their respective targets. Xiao Yan's face was completely devoid of blood. He was extremely weak. The sword light had not yet reached his body, but the biting cold light already made his entire body ache, and he felt as if he was about to be split in half like a god-slaying puppet. And the four-colored flaming lotus had already reached Venerable Swordsman Xiaoshang. It had not even exploded, but Venerable Swordsman Xiaoshang already felt as if his void-level Dharma body was about to burn and then explode. If he forcefully took this attack, either the little Shang sword's primordial spirit would be destroyed, or he would be directly blown to death. Just at this time, a black light that was like a wall, like a mountain, appeared in front of Venerable Swordsman Xiaoshang. It was like a barrier that separated heaven and earth, blocking Xiao Yan's four-colored flaming lotus. The Grand Elder of Shu Mountain, Jie Luosher's Guanchong sword. In the distant void, Jie Luosher stretched out his right hand, and an extremely heavy black light circulated on his fingertip. This was Guanchong's sword weapon, which was much more powerful than when sword Venerate Guanchong's Dharma body had yet to shatter and he was at his peak. The four-colored fiery lotus fell on the black light and exploded with a loud bang, annihilating all sound. Only the endless fiery light spread out, illuminating the dark void where everyone was as bright as day. Heaven and earth seemed to be divided into two by the black light. On one side was an endless sea of fire, completely annihilating sound, light, and spiritual energy. On the other side was Venerable Swordsman Little Shang, who was still in a state of shock. He was shocked to find that even the black light formed by the falling stone pass sword was shaking violently under the bombardment of this terrifying four-colored fire lotus. The sword intent that was as firm as a divine mountain and as heavy as the ancient earth was also shaking. A hint of surprise also flashed in Jie Luosher's eyes. Behind him was the two extremes heavenly peak, which seemed to be in another independent world. In that world, it was filled with dense clouds that one couldn't even see their own fingers. In the clouds, the two extremes heavenly peak was shaking violently. In an instant, it shook hundreds and thousands of times. Every time it shook, it was an explosion of his power. This was because at this moment, the clouds that enveloped him were launching hundreds and thousands of attacks at him in an instant. The sword intent and dermic power that Jie Luosher's Great Yin sword had activated was different from that of venerable swordsman Great Yin. It was not thousands of strands of qi, but innumerable tiny particles that were like grains of sand in the Ganges River. They were like thousands of dust particles that turned into a haze that enveloped the two extremes' heavenly peak. These dust-like sword intent and dermic power seemed to be everywhere, untraceable, endless, and all-pervasive. They looked as tiny as dust particles, seemingly negligible, but in reality, any one of these sword intent and dermic power possessed extremely terrifying offensive power. The highest realm of the Great Yin sword, the Great Yin Four Void Sword realm. This sword was the ultimate offensive power of the Great Yin sword. Throughout the ages, there were very few experts of Shushan who could master this sword at the second tier of the primordial spirit realm. As for Jie Luosher, he was a rare genius of the Great Yin sword lineage. He had already mastered this sword when the second tier of the primordial spirit realm had returned to the void realm. Now that he was using it at the third tier of the primordial spirit realm, its power was even greater. Jie Luosher's Great Yin sword blocked Xiao Yan's four-colored fiery lotus. On the other side, he tapped his finger, and the Xiaoshang sword flashed with a cold light. It entered the Great Yin Four Void Sword realm and instantly slashed down on the two extremes' heavenly peak. As the two sides were about to collide, Jie Luosher's Xiaoshang sword suddenly changed. As the light exploded, a monstrous murderous intent surged. The sword light was incomparably resplendent. Within the sword light, countless sword qi and sword aura surged, and the sword intent took on a physical form. It was incomparably fierce, even more shocking and ferocious than the Xiaoshang sword. Among the 6 meridian swords of Shushan, this was a fierce attack that targeted a single point. It could be said to be the number 1 sword of the 6 meridian swords. An extremely fierce and ferocious force erupted, concentrated on a single point, and directly pierced through the two extremes' heavenly peak. The two extremes' heavenly peak shook, and endless flames spewed from the top of the mountain. The entire ice crystal-like mountain instantly became almost transparent. The space where the mountain was also transformed into a world, ice and fire intertwining. The flames incinerated the Great Yin sword that was like a cloud, and the ice transformed into layers of barriers, concentrating its power to block the piercing attack of the Leaf Feng sword. And on the other side, the four-colored fiery lotus was blocked by Jie Luosher's Great Yin sword. Looking at the frightened expression of the little Shang venerable swordsman on the other side of the black light, looking at the terrifying sword light of the Xiaoshang sword that was already right in front of him, Xiao Yan's pale face was as resolute and stubborn as before. The void suddenly opened, and a tall man stepped out. He was dressed in blue, and a jet-black vine wrapped around his arm. The tall man faced the Xiaoshang sword, his expression also grave. The jet-black vine on his arm rapidly grew, and a white flower suddenly appeared on the vine. The white flower bloomed, and an extremely ancient and desolate aura bloomed, giving birth to a vigorous life force. The Xiaoshang sword landed on the seemingly delicate white flower, but it was not able to completely sever the white flower. Instead, it pressed against the petals of the white flower, slowly cutting the petals apart. The speed was extremely slow. In the distance, Jie Luosher's eyebrows rose slightly. The primordial great Tao of longevity flower, endlessly lasting? The ancient sovereign's primordial great Tao of longevity art's true inheritance? Beside Xiao Yan, a beautiful figure in blue appeared. She held the ancient emperor blade in her hand, and the primordial thunder jade above her head. She blocked sword Saint Ning Lang of Broken Mountain, who had lost control of the god-slaying puppet and was attempting to kill Xiao Yan. On Xiao Yan's pale face, a brilliant smile bloomed on his lips. He stood back to back with the beautiful young girl. They did not need to say anything, and their minds were already connected. Xiao stuck to Xiao Yan, an apologetic expression on her face. I'm sorry, big brother Xiao Yan. My family's dimensional realm has also undergone a great change. Father and the others can't leave, and only Uncle Pern can come with me. I don't know how useful he will be in the future. Xiao Yan smiled. My sect should be apologizing for dragging you guys into this. But between you and me, I won't say sorry or thank you. Hearing this, Xiaozhen also laughed softly. After laughing, Xiao Yan's expression became serious again, because he clearly saw Jie Luoshe raise his right hand expressionlessly. His index and middle fingers were placed together like a sword, and a white chaotic hole appeared on his fingertip. The white chaotic hole's airflow kept spinning, and an extremely terrifying power was being born from it. From the white chaotic hole, an extremely thin sword qi rushed out. It looked weak, like a breeze, but it was extremely terrifying. The sword qi seemed to be born from chaos before the heaven and earth were formed. It wanted to split the chaos with one strike, split the heavens and earth, and build a world. The supreme sword Tao of Shu Mountain, heavenly immortal sword qi. This extremely terrifying sword qi slashed towards the two-pole sky peak. The two-pole sky peak, which was busy dealing with the moon sword and Li sword, was instantly damaged, and a crack appeared on the mountain. Muffled groans came from the two-pole sky peak. On the other side, sword Venerable Little Shang also rushed forward with his sword. Xiao Zhen'er's uncle Gu Ping used his incarnation-grade magic treasure Longevity Ancient Vine to stop him, while Xiao Zhen'er faced sword Venerable Broken Mountain, Ning Lang. Swordsman Heavy Mist, who was wrapped up in the immortal Emperor flag, was also struggling incessantly. Although the immortal Emperor flag had been refined by Xiao Yan, it still retained a considerable amount of autonomy. It was impossible for him to risk his life for Xiao Yan's sake. At this moment, the immortal Emperor flag's origin spirit's heart sank even further when it saw the incomparably terrifying heavenly immortal sword qi unleashed from the falling rocks. Xiao Yan watched as the twin-pole sky peak was pushed back repeatedly. Taking a deep breath, he patted his storage pouch and a cloud forest tree trunk appeared. Compared to the towering tree from before, there was not much left of it. The tree trunk had completely turned into essence qi, nourishing Xiao Yan's almost depleted magic power. Feeling his magic power rapidly recovering, Xiao Yan closed his eyes and sat down cross-legged. A strange pill appeared in his palm and he swallowed it. 33 Heavens Fortune Immortal Pill. Lin Feng and Xiao Yan had painstakingly worked for many years, and now they had finally refined it. After swallowing the immortal pill, a light shadow flashed above Xiao Yan's head, and a huge heaven and earth avatar appeared. But this was not the end. A 15 or 16-year-old light shadow also appeared above Xiao Yan's head. His facial features were impressively his own appearance when he was young. Yuanying out of the body. Generally speaking, a nascent soul at its peak would have the appearance of a cultivator at the age of 16. After returning from Yingxi in the past 2 years in the vast Thousand World, other than occasionally leaving the mountain to train and refine pills, Xiao Yan spent the rest of his time in closed-door cultivation. In closed-door cultivation at Burning Heaven Cliff, in closed-door cultivation at Mysterious Heaven's Time Light Grotto Heaven, he figured out Tao techniques and nurtured his nascent soul. The current him had long reached the peak of late nascent soul. After the extremely tragic battle that had allowed him to unleash all his potential, Xiao Yan felt that the originally indistinct door above his head was now unprecedentedly clear. Everyone present was slightly shocked when they saw this. Could it be that he's going to? Xiao Yan's heaven and earth avatar was currently full of wounds, showing the ferocity of the battle just now. His physical body was in an even worse state, and his right palm was badly mutilated. But at this moment, Xiao Yan's essence, qi, and spirit were unprecedentedly vigorous. He only felt that he had never been so close to the Tao of heaven and earth. Xiao Zhen'er's gaze looked over. Xiao Yan slightly smiled. I am Master's eldest disciple, the rest of the sect's eldest Shixiang, eldest uncle, head elder. Since Master is not here, I have to stand up. As long as my body is not destroyed, I will protect the sect for eternity. I will not regret it even if I die 10,000 times. Xiao Zhen looked at him and did not try to persuade him. A faint smile appeared on her face, and she turned around and attacked even more fiercely, not letting him take a step forward. Xiao Yan let out a long roar. Third junior brother, fourth junior sister, fifth junior brother, it's a pity that I can't wait for your Xidagarba true brilliance. Second junior brother, little junior brother, forgive me for taking this step first. Chapter 839. He became famous at a young age, but then suddenly wasted his life. There was the humiliation of someone breaking off the engagement, and then there was the pride of settling old matters at the cloud travel peak. Then, because he blindly cultivated the Nanmingli fire, he fell into trouble again. Then he shone again and became famous. He had climbed a high mountain and fallen into a valley. His life was full of ups and downs. Now, looking back, there was only peace in his heart. Unexpectedly, deep in his memory, the scene of meeting his master for the first time flashed in his mind, and his words were still ringing in his ears. I told you to take care of your junior brother, and it was not just for show. Ordinary people know that an elder brother has to protect his younger brother and sister. In the future, when your junior brother and sister are in trouble, you, as the eldest senior brother, have to stand up for them. If you were beaten by someone's junior, then beat them back yourself. Don't be like a child who hasn't grown up and come crying to your master. I don't have such a useless disciple. If you beat up the young, if you provoke the old, don't be afraid. At that time, your master will stand up for you. Don't worry, master. Even if you provoke the old, you don't have to do anything. I will concentrate on cultivating and then go back to find him. At that time, we will fight the old and the young together. The conversation between master and disciple gradually faded away. Xiao Yan's long roar shook the void in all directions. All his willpower finally merged into one, eliminating other distracting thoughts, and there was only one voice in his heart. Primordial Spirit, Primordial Spirit, Primordial Spirit. At this moment, he felt that the door in his sea of consciousness suddenly opened. A large amount of laws of heaven and earth fell, like a heavenly path, leading Xiao Yan straight to the 9 heavens. His yuanying turned into a stream of light and rushed into the Dharma of heaven and earth. As if the human soul had a body, yuanying and the Dharma of heaven and earth became one, rushing into the opened door together. After this pass, the world would never be the same again. The sea and the sky were vast, and the ruler was free to roam. Heaven and earth were one, and the same age as the heavens. Without a mortal body, he could go anywhere in the world. After passing through the door in the void, Xiao Yan's Dharma of heaven and earth suddenly collapsed and became one with the world. Under the baptism of countless laws of heaven and earth, it turned into dazzling talisman seeds. All of a sudden, these talisman seeds separated into 5 different directions and transformed into millions of little flames. They were milky white, pure gold, dark black, blue-purple, and gold with red and blue radiance. Every little flame was constantly absorbing the great Tao laws of creation of the world. Under the nourishment of these laws, they grew rapidly, turning into balls of raging flames that covered the entire void. In the next moment, all the flames fused together, turning into a huge Taiji diagram in the void that was half black and half white. It covered the sky and filled the world. Suddenly, a loud and heroic song came from the Taiji diagram. The brilliant art is like practice, the burning heavens and boiling sea's palm. The mysterious fiery lotus proves my true self, and my life will be that of an immortal in the flames of the myriad realms. After the song, the Taiji diagram spun and turned into a sea of fire. Under everyone's watchful eyes and heavy pressure, Xiao Yan successfully broke through the final barrier and became an essence soul cultivator. His original body, the evil radiant overlord sword, and the 5 divine badges fell into the boundless sea of fire. A faint golden figure appeared on the immortal imperial flag. It was completely formed from light and shadow dermic powers. It was dressed in a coiled dragon golden armor and a golden helmet. Its face was filled with the majesty of an emperor, as if it was an emperor personally leading the army. It was the immortal imperial flag's Dharma treasure origin spirit. He looked at Xiao Yan and sighed. He took off the golden helmet on his head and bowed slightly to Xiao Yan. Immediately after, the faint golden figure disappeared. As the immortal imperial flag fluttered, it threw venerable swordsman heavy mist out. Then, it turned into a black light and followed the evil radiant overlord sword and the 5 divine badges into the sea of fire. The next moment, the sea of fire gradually condensed, turning into a flaming human figure. The fire light dispersed, once again revealing a purple-clothed, black-robed Xiao Yan. On his forehead, the Tai Chi pattern flashed and disappeared. His original physical injuries were rather serious. If his essence soul and physical body were to fuse and prove his Tao through martial arts, his power would not be complete after he had just formed his essence soul. He needed time to recover. The current situation was urgent, and he did not have that much time. Hence Xiao Yan simply refined his original physical body shell into his primordial spirit as well. In this way, he could ensure that his essence soul was formed, and his combat power would not be affected in any way. He would be at his peak. Although the power of martial arts such as the 4 symbols Milky Way Palm, the Calamity Flame Green Dragon Claw, and the Evil Radiant White Tiger Slash would be weaker than when the essence soul was fused with the physical body, the power of the Celestial Flaming Lotus, the Yin-Yang Burning Sky Array, the Dark Evil Radiant, and the mysterious Heavenly Tribulation Flame could be unleashed to the extreme. Xiao Yan let out a long roar and stretched out his right hand. Majestic purple-blue demonic flames gathered in his palm and turned into an extremely huge black sword. Clang! Xiao Yan stood with his sword in front of him and flicked his left hand on the black sword. Suddenly, an extremely violent will appeared. It was as if a peerless demon lord had awakened and wanted to destroy the world. Xiao Yan laughed. Today, you are the real evil radiant overlord sword. The wide and edgeless black sword in his hand let out a long hum that resounded through the 9 heavens. The endless destructive will of calamity filled the void. On the surface of the blade, the dark red crack of the netherworld sea appeared again. The violent power of the netherworld sea seemed to pour into the evil radiant overlord sword, making its evil aura even more intense and mournful. The Little Shang sword in Venerable Swordsman Little Shang's hand shook violently and a majestic voice came from it. What an evil and tyrannical sword! It is only at the spirit conception level and has just been successfully refined, but it is already so savage. After being nourished, even if it does not transform, it will still be a sharp sword. Guan Chong's sword had just manifested a human body, but it was already extremely weak. It was almost unable to maintain its essence soul incarnation. It was only thanks to Venerable Swordsman Heavy Mist's lunar sword that he was able to protect himself. Guan Chong's sword returned to his side, but the sword light was already extremely dim. There were several terrifying cracks on the sword's body, making it look extremely miserable. At this moment, facing the evil radiant overlord sword that had become a magic treasure along with Xiao Yan, the heavily injured Guan Chong's sword let out a low grunt. The sword light actually became even dimmer. Is he really a cultivator at the essence soul incarnation realm like me? Venerable Swordsman Ning Lang of Broken Mountains looked at Xiao Yan. For a moment he was stunned on the spot. He only felt that his heart of the sword, which had long been covered in dust, seemed to be shattering. For a moment, even Gu Peng, the direct descendant of the ancient emperor who had come with Xiao Zhen for help, felt the terrifying aura that seemed to burn the heavens and boil the seas from Xiao Yan's body. His heart trembled. Everyone looked at Xiao Yan. Disregarding guest protectors and elders, this was Xianmen Tianzong's second essence soul expert after sect master Lin Feng. After the bloody battle with the Shushan sword cultivators, he had instead exploded with peerless brilliance. His essence soul had shaken the heavens. Xiao Yan ignored Venerable Swordsman Little Shang, Venerable Swordsman Guan Chong, and the others. With a shake of the evil radiant overlord sword in his hand, his body became one with the sword, and he turned into a beam of bluish-purple flames that attacked Jie Luosher in the distance. In order to buy time for Xiao Yan, the twin pole sky peak was forced to withstand Jie Luosher's terrifying sword moves. Finally, it was completely damaged. The mountain cracked, and the lava that was spewing from the top of the mountain lost its vitality. Mr. Twin Pole Sky Peak, I will definitely repay your kindness. With a long roar, Xiao Yan's sword cut through the air and blocked in front of the Twin Pole's Sky Peak. With a flip of his palm, a four-colored fire lotus blasted towards Jie Luosher. Jie Luosher was expressionless. He formed a sword seal and activated Guan Chong sword. It turned into a black light screen that isolated the world and blocked in front of him. But this time, the violent firmament fire lotus exploded. In the center of the explosion, the void was burned into nothingness. Endless flames roared and directly shattered the black light screen. Jie Luosher's eyes flashed. He activated Xiao's sword and instantly flew out of the range of the fire attack. Then, Xiao's sword transformed into Xiaoshang's sword. Rolling and vigorous sword light was like the Milky Way flowing in reverse, slashing towards Xiao Yan. 5-colored light flashed on top of Xiao Yan's head, and the 5 divine badges appeared once again. At this moment, this treasure had been completely refined by Xiao Yan. After going through the baptism of Xiao Yan's primordial soul, it was even more powerful. Although there were still cracks on the surface, it was even more powerful than when it was at its peak. The 5 large words on the surface of the badge flashed together, and the supreme will of the 5 great emperors faintly revealed itself. 5 balls of light flashed on the 5 large words, respectively showing the 5 phenomena of green lightning, golden flames, dark yellow light, clear water, and young shoots and old trees. They combined with Xiao Yan's 5 great true fires, and then the 5 phenomena gradually merged, turning into the appearance of a crimson world. This crimson world blocked Jie Luosher's Xiaoshang sword. Although the red light kept collapsing, it did not give an inch and stubbornly held on. Behind Xiao Yan, a large flag fluttered in the wind. There was a huge emperor character on the flag, and layers of black light appeared. As the black light flowed, it protected Xiao Yan in the center, exuding the aura of a powerful army protecting the emperor. No matter how powerful the enemy was, no matter how the sky fell and the earth cracked, it would still protect the safety of its ruler. The majesty of the emperor could not be shaken, and it would never be destroyed. Besides opening up a space inside, defense was the true strength of the immortal imperial flag. At this moment, even though Xiao Yan, who was at the first tier of the primordial soul realm, could not use its power to its fullest, it was still not to be underestimated. Working together with the 5 divine badges, red and black light alternated, protecting Xiao Yan. The sword Dao of a third-tier primordial soul realm swordsman was too powerful. Even so, it constantly shattered the red and black light as it advanced. But Xiao Yan was not one to take a beating and not fight back. With a loud shout, another 4-colored fire lotus landed on Jie Luosher. The 4-colored fire lotus that had been extremely difficult to use in the past was finally at the level of ease for Xiao Yan, who had reached the primordial soul realm. At the same time, because of the increase in Xiao Yan's cultivation, its power was even more terrifying. And this time, Xiao Yan's 4-colored fire lotus was gold at the bottom. The petals flickered with red and blue light, 1 blue and 1 red, alternating. The middle layer was bluish-purple, and the top layer was pure gold. In the center of the lotus, there were a few wisps of black smoke, like thin pistols. Nan Ming Li fire, dark evil blaze, true sun fire, mysterious heaven calamity flame. This was the most powerful combination of the 4-colored fire lotus, and also the most powerful 4-colored fire lotus in history. Chapter 840. After Xiao Yan attained the primordial soul transformation realm, his control over the 5 great immortal fires had also improved. Using the celestial flaming lotus on top of this foundation, the same 4-colored flaming lotus was much more terrifying than the late Yuanying stage. Xiao Yan's 4-colored flaming lotus at the late Yuanying stage had been blocked by Guan Chong's sword. However, now that Xiao Yan had attained the primordial soul embodiment realm, his 4-colored flaming lotus directly shattered the defense set up by Guan Chong's sword. Seeing this, Jie Luosher frowned deeply. He held his index and middle fingers together like a sword, and the terrifying white chaotic hole reappeared at his fingertips. The heavenly immortal sword chi that had previously defeated the twin celestial peaks shot out once again, meeting Xiao Yan's 4-colored flaming lotus with earth-shattering momentum. The celestial flaming lotus was directly pierced by the white sword chi and exploded in the void. The surrounding space collapsed and was annihilated, turning into nothingness. The terrifying power of the flames also forcibly broke Jie Luosher's heavenly immortal sword chi. Xiao Yan stared at Jie Luosher. Why does it look like you don't want to use your Mount Shu's special heavenly immortal sword chi? It seems like it's not that you don't want to use it, but that you have some unspeakable difficulties. Oh, could it be that after seeing my master's heavenly immortal sword chi, you've lost confidence in your Mount Shu's heavenly immortal sword chi, causing your sword heart to become unstable? Xiao Yan suddenly grinned. But that's normal. It's not your fault. The divine light in Jie Luosher's eyes intensified, and a green steel longsword suddenly appeared in his hand. The longsword was extremely ordinary. It was not a Dharma treasure, not even an immortal treasure. It was just an ordinary green steel sword in the mortal world. However, with Jie Luosher's sword in hand, his momentum was naturally different. The sword will around him filled the sky, and his hoarse voice, which sounded like metal rubbing against each other, rang out. There's no point in arguing. In the end, it all depends on the sword in hand. As he spoke, Jie Luosher had already struck out with his sword. Endless sword light covered the sky and earth, flying toward Xiao Yan. For a moment, there was nothing in the world. It was as if there were only countless sword lights shining. Xiao Yan sneered. Domineering firmament fire lotuses appeared one after another, turning into a huge Taiji diagram in this barren space. This time, there were a total of 8 four-colored fire lotuses in the formation. The solar true fire, the pure yang true fire, the mysterious heavenly tribulation flame, and the nether evil flame formed the fire lotuses. However, they were not purely yin and yang. Instead, they were yin and yang opposites, yet they also blended with each other. The 8 fiery lotuses laid down an unprecedentedly powerful yin-yang burning sky array, as if turning this side of the world into a giant grinder, squeezing falling stone in the middle. The raging flames burned crazily, shattering the rays of sword light that Jie Luosher shot out and attacking Jie Luosher himself. On the other side, the polar sky peak, who had been saved by Xiao Yan, dragged his broken body to help Gu Peng and Xiao Zhe. Jie Luosher looked at Xiao Yan expressionlessly and nodded slightly. He gently flicked the cyan steel longsword in his hand, making a long sword sound. A white sword chi shot out from the tip of the cyan steel longsword and cut into the sea of fire. It continuously cut through Xiao Yan's yin-yang burning sky array with the power to split the sea. Xiao Yan's hands changed hand seals, and the yin-yang burning sky array kept operating to resist Jie Luosher's heavenly immortal sword chi. This guy is a Dao integration realm cultivator, so he still has strength left. Xiao Yan frowned slightly and said without turning his head, You guys go first. I'll cover you. As he spoke, he laughed loudly. His whole body turned into a huge Taiji diagram that covered the sky. He had manifested his primordial spirit incarnation and pushed his power to the extreme. The power of the yin-yang burning sky array skyrocketed again, and it even began to burn and refine Jie Luosher's heavenly immortal sword chi. Jie Luosher's eyes narrowed into slits, and a cold light flashed in them. No one dared to look him in the eye. His gaze was like a sharp sword light that could split mountains and seas. His right hand still held the long sword motionlessly, and his left hand formed a sword seal. Suddenly, 81 extremely terrifying white sword chi that resembled angry dragons appeared. After spinning 9 times in the void, they tangled together. Usually, Jie Luosher's heavenly immortal sword chi would only be a tiny wisp. However, at this moment, each of the 81 sword chi was extremely thick and contained extremely terrifying power. They were condensed and pure. These 81 sword chi tangled together and turned into something that looked like a pure white fruit. Jie Luosher's Dao integration fruit, the immortal 9 revolution fruit. Just like Xen Longxing's immortal sword Dao fruit, it was the essence of the sword Dao obtained from comprehending the principles of heaven and earth and analyzing the immortal sword chi. Jie Luosher pointed the long sword in his hand at Xiao Yan. The immortal 9 revolution fruit spun in the air and a dazzling light shot out. However, It was not a straight line of light. Instead, it twisted strangely in the void and spun in a spiral, stabbing toward Xiao Yan. After this spiral, the terrifying light had already destroyed all the sea of fire in its path. In the twisted void, space, time, and spirit chi were all messed up, and it broke through the layers of fire. Seeing this, Venerable Swordsman Little Shang and the others no longer had any worries and rushed forward to stop Xiaojun and the others. Seeing this, Venerable Swordsman Little Shang and the others no longer had anything to worry about and rushed forward to stop Xiaojun and the others. Then the entire yin-yang burning sky array erupted and completely exploded. The sound of explosions did not stop. The domineering true fire mixed with the powerful twisting power of yin and yang forcefully crushed Jie Luosher's immortal 9-revolution sword chi. In the next moment, an overwhelming rain of fire and meteors fell from the yin-yang burning sky array, smashing toward the heads of Venerable Swordsman Little Shang and the others like an apocalypse. Other than Venerable Swordsman Little Shang, who had the Little Shang sword in his hand and was still in good condition, Venerable Swordsman Guanchong, Venerable Swordsman Heavy Smoke, and Venerable Swordsman Broken Mountain Yinglang all felt a chill from the bottom of their hearts, as if death was right in front of them. The rain of fire that covered the sky and covered the earth, any one of the meteors could seriously injure them. Venerable Swordsman Little Shang shouted angrily, indicating for Venerable Swordsman Guanchong and the others to stop and not continue to chase after Xiaojun and the others. He himself shook the Little Shang sword and once again placed his primordial spirit into the sword. His void-returned physique and the Little Shang sword became one, transforming into a fierce sword light that was like a river of stars. It stretched across the sky and blocked this wave of fire and meteors. The sea of fire and meteors collided with the dazzling sword light wave after wave, causing the sword light to tremble uncontrollably. It swayed in the wind and rain, as if it could be destroyed at any time. Countless sword lights shattered and scattered in all directions like dregs. At this moment, another 9 revolutions immortal sword light flew through the air, annihilating a large number of fire and meteors, helping Venerable Swordsman Little Shang to block this wave of attack. Jie Luosher used the 9 revolutions immortal fruit of 9 revolutions of immortal heaven to protect him. He walked out of the sea of fire, the green steel sword in his hand shook, and the 9 revolutions immortal sword light once again slashed toward Xiao Yan. The sword light contained a grand concept of power that could pierce through heaven and earth. It was the ultimate sublimation after 10,000 swords became one, and it was also the starting point of the world sword Dao. Xiao Yan's cold voice came from the yin-yang burning sky array. You want to die? Within the yin-yang burning sky array, 5 balls of flame suddenly appeared. Dark and evil, fierce and domineering, they were bluish-purple flames that seemed to want to destroy everything in the world. They were as dazzling as the sun, and the flames were like needles of pure gold. The flames were condensed, flickering with red and blue light, but they themselves were golden flames. Righteous, young, pure, like the milky white flames of the origin of all flames. Vicious and evil, greedy and vicious, they were black flames that wanted to devour everything in sight. The nether evil flame, the solar true fire, the Nanmingli fire, the pure yang true fire, and the mysterious heaven tribulation flame. 5 of the 7 great true fires of the world were gathered together, and the monstrous flames began to fuse. Almost as soon as they did this, a violent power began to shake the void. The space where the flames were was instantly burned through. The originally dazzling flames gradually weakened. It was not that the power of the flames had decreased, but that the void had completely collapsed at the center of the 5 great true fires. Even light was swallowed up, unable to escape. Venerable Swordsman Little Shang and the others stared dumbly at the terrifying scene above the yin-yang burning sky array. Jie Luosher's eyebrows slightly furrowed, and his expression became solemn. The green steel sword in his hand stabbed into his 9 revolutions immortal heaven Dao fruit, and the profound and powerful power of the Dao fruit condensed into the sword. In an instant, the sword in Jie Luosher's hand had turned from an ordinary green steel sword into a white sword of qi. The body of the sword was like a coiling dragon, and 81 terrifying sword chi circled around it. Each sword chi went around 9 revolutions. But Jie Luoshi did not use this sword. He could vaguely feel that although Xiao Yan had not completely fused the 5 great true fires, it was precisely because of this that it was even more dangerous. The true fires had already fused, and the terrifying power that could destroy heaven and earth had already formed. However, Xiao Yan had just formed his primordial spirit, and it was his first time trying to activate the 5-colored celestial fire lotus, so he could not control it freely. The situation was similar to when he first fused the true fires on Yujing Mountain. At this time, Jie Luoshi attacked with his sword, detonating the terrifying power. He and Xiao Yan would not be able to get away with it. The true fires shook violently, and the flaming Tai Chi diagram formed by Xiao Yan's primordial spirit was constantly tearing and collapsing. Every time the number of true fires fused, the difficulty and danger increased greatly. Seeing this, Xiao Zhen and the others immediately understood why Xiao Yan had asked them to leave first. If they did not leave, even they would be affected. The few of them immediately retreated and rushed towards the void teleportation array at the entrance of the Xiantian realm. Slowly, Xiao Yan's primordial spirit avatar withstood the terrifying merged true fires. The people from the Shushan sword sect could only stop. They wanted to take a detour to intercept Xiao Zhen and the others, but if they made any strange movements, the terrifying merged true fires would tremble, and they did not dare to act rashly. Looking at Xiao Yan who was blocking everyone's path, looking at Xiao Zhen and the rest who were gradually getting further away behind Xiao Yan, looking at the Grand Elder who was at the 3rd level of the primordial soul realm stopping in his tracks even after removing the falling rocks, not daring to take another step, Sword Venerable Little Shang and the rest felt indescribably depressed. They thought about how he had single-handedly blocked Sword Venerable Little Shang, Sword Venerable Guanchong, Sword Venerable Heavy Mist, and Sword Venerable Ning Lang of Broken Mountain during the late Yuanning period, making it difficult for the others to chase after Zen Master Date. If Jie Luoshi had not interfered in such a dangerous situation, he could have even killed Sword Venerable Little Shang after defeating Sword Venerable Guanchong and the others. After that, in the midst of many dangerous situations, he had turned the pressure into motivation and attained the primordial spirit Tao. Even Jie Luoshi, who was at the Tao integration realm, had been blocked by him. Sword Venerable Little Shang and the others felt dizzy, and a sentence suddenly appeared in their minds. One man holds the pass, 10,000 cannot get through. Chapter 841. The Master of the Mystic Gate was a sect full of prodigies. This had already been publicly acknowledged by the entire divine land and even the entire great heaven primordial world. Every time they advanced to a new realm, they could practically sweep away all the elites of that realm. It was as if their only opponents were from the same sect. And among them, Xiao Yan, Zhu Yi, Wang Lin, and Shi Tianhao were the most eye-catching. Their existence seemed to be to tell the world that they were the only true geniuses. All other geniuses had to bow down before them. And today, among the 4 of them, one had finally taken that step and succeeded in proving his primordial soul Tao. Without reaching the primordial soul Tao, one's lifespan would eventually come to an end. Once the time was up, no matter how talented one was, no matter how amazing one was, no matter how unparalleled one's talent was, it would all turn to dust in the blink of an eye. The long river of time would always be one of the most effective touchstones to test the quality of a genius. And now, not only had Xiao Yan succeeded in proving his primordial soul Tao, but he had also once again proven his powerful mystical powers and dermic powers. At the first tier of the primordial soul Tao, he was able to take on a 3rd-tier primordial soul Tao cultivator, Jie Luoshi. Jie Luoshi watched as Xiao Yan and the others slowly retreated. His gaze grew colder. He did not take the initiative to attack. Like a wolf chasing its prey, he chased after Xiao Yan. He seemed to be able to see a handsome youth standing in the flaming Tai Chi diagram. The youth's gaze was equally cold as he stared back at him. The incomplete version of the 5-colored heavenly fire lotus exploded. It was an outcome of mutual destruction. Maintaining this state, Xiao Yan's primordial soul incarnation continued to be damaged. Parts of the flaming Tai Chi diagram kept cracking, and it was a huge burden on him. If this continued for too long, before Xiao Yan recovered from his injuries, he would probably not be able to activate the 5-fire lotus again. The reason why Jie Luoshi didn't lightly cross the line was because on one hand he didn't have confidence, on the other hand it was also because even though the current situation made him lose all face, he could bury a hidden worry for Xiao Yan. Even if Xiao Yan and the others successfully returned to Jing Mountain, it still wouldn't be all good. The momentum of Xian annihilation had already been formed, and today's battle was just the beginning. Although this was what he said, it was impossible for Jie Luoshi to not feel vexed. Being forced to such a state by a junior who had just attained the primordial divinity realm and was not even a fraction of his age was no longer something that could be described as shame and humiliation. Xiao Yan also stared coldly at the falling stone. In the past, when he first tried to merge the 3 flame lotuses and the 4 flame lotuses, it was under the supervision of his master, Lin Feng. Therefore, there were no big risks, unlike this time, where he had to sharpen his spear at the last minute and was in great danger. How could Xiao Yan not see the heart of a tiger and a wolf when it came to breaking a falling stone? However, his mind remained as calm as before. Although he was unable to gain complete control over the 5 fire lotuses due to the fact that he had only just condensed them, causing his soul to be constantly injured, Xiao Yan had actually been constantly studying the mysteries of fusing the 5 types of true fire. He had benefited greatly from this. Before his injuries were healed, it was indeed difficult for him to activate the 5 fire lotuses again. However, after his injuries were healed, he would be able to master this extremely terrifying and peerless divine ability faster than expected. He would also be able to have a deeper understanding of his own dermic powers. Just like when he was in the Golden Elixir period, he had recklessly cultivated the 3 great true fires. If he could correct his state of mind and focus on cultivation, he would be able to soar in the future instead. If there was a huge battle at Yujing Mountain, apart from dying together at the last moment, he did not intend to activate the incomplete and difficult to control 5-color heavenly fire lotuses there, because it would not be able to distinguish between friend and foe. Slowly, Xiao Yan retreated and arrived at the void transportation matrix at the entrance of the Shintian realm. The 2-pole sky peak had already returned to Yujing Mountain to recuperate. Xiao Zhen and Gu Peng were waiting there. The flame Tai Chi diagram turned back into Xiao Yan's appearance. He leaped into the void transportation matrix and left with Xiao Zhen and Gu Peng. As for the terrifying true fusion fire, it exploded between heaven and earth. In the fire, Xiao Yan stared at Jie Luoshi, his eyes cold. "Thank you for sending me off." Jie Luoshi's eyes narrowed, cold light radiating from them. He did not say anything, but Xiao Yan naturally understood the meaning in his eyes. "We will meet again soon." Xiao Yan coldly laughs and disappears into the void teleportation formation, while that horrifying blazing fire destroys the void teleportation formation along with it. Jie Luoshi and the others retreated far away. Looking at the raging fire that could burn the sky and boil the sea, Jie Luoshi was expressionless. The cold light in his eyes gradually disappeared, and he turned to look at venerable swordsmen of Little Shang and the others. "Duan Yu, Zhong Yan, escort Guan Chong back to the mountain. Xiao Shang, you go meet up with Li Xiong." Jie Luoshi's voice was hoarse and harsh. "Xiaoze has already brought Qing Tian and the others over. I will go with them to Yujing Mountain." Venerable swordsmen of Little Shang, Venerable swordsman Guan Chong, Ning Lang, and Venerable swordsman Zhong Yan nodded. "We will do as Elder Jie says." The few of them turned into sword light and left. Jie Luoshi's gaze pierced through the void and looked in the direction of Yujing Mountain. "There, I can feel." At the northern foothills of Kunlun Mountain, Cloud Mirror City and Cloud Peak were no longer as noisy as before. In Cloud Mirror City, everyone related to Shenmen Tianzong, all the foundational disciples on Cloud Peak, and the outer sect stewards had been moved to Yujing Mountain. At the top of Yujing Mountain, in front of the All Heavens Hall, Li Yuanfang was standing there. Zen Master Dade, who had sent him back, and the two Poles Sky Peak, who had just arrived, were currently recuperating, hoping to quickly recover their combat power. The void opened, and Xiao Yan and the others landed on the mountain together. Li Yuanfang cupped his fists at Xiao Yan. Eldest senior brother. He could not continue speaking. The usually calm and composed Li Yuanfang's eyes were slightly red at this moment. Xiao Yan smiled, walked forward, and patted him on the shoulder. Don't worry, I'm fine. Not only am I fine, but I've also successfully broken through the final shackles and become a primordial soul cultivator. Li Yuanfang nodded. Yes, I know. Eldest senior brother, your dermic power and aura are very different from before. It can be said that you've been reborn and have undergone earth-shaking changes. He cupped his fists again and said, Congratulations, eldest senior brother, on becoming a primordial soul cultivator and achieving longevity. Then he bowed to Xiaozhen and Gu Peng. Thank you, Miss Zhen and Senior Gu, for your help. After greeting each other, Xiao Yan asked, Second junior brother hasn't come out of seclusion yet? Li Yuanfang shook his head. Not yet. He's in the Xiantian Time Light Cave. This time, the situation is special. Second senior brother can't estimate the specific time. Xiao Yan took a deep breath. What about the people of the Xiantian realm you brought back? Li Yuanfang answered, They're still in the small world formed by Senior Feng Biji's dermic power. They're in the Great Hall of All Heavens. Xiao Yan looked at the Great Hall of All Heavens. Master once said that many of the buildings in the sect were created by him. They're very sturdy and hard to be destroyed by enemies. However, other than the main hall, the other buildings don't have the ability to defend and protect themselves. They're just passively sturdy. If the restrictions of the Great Hall of All Heavens are broken, it'll become the same as the other buildings. So, we'll settle everyone in the Great Hall of All Heavens for now. If the situation is really critical, we'll send everyone to Ing Ocean. The 3 mountains of Ing Ocean can't leave Ing Ocean, but in Ing Ocean, we have 2 mountains in our hands. We won't allow anyone to humiliate us. This is the last way out for everyone. Slowly, Xiao Yan said. What he meant was that he had decided to defend Yujing Mountain to the death. He wouldn't retreat even if he died in battle. Li Yuanfang asked, Everyone knows that our sect possesses the immortal mountain of Yingzhou. Although the great Zhou dynasty has lost the immortal mountain of Fangzhong, it seems that they have a deep understanding of the immortal mountain in the past 2 years. Once we connect the void teleportation formation and start the teleportation, the great Zhou Empire might find some clues. Xiao Yan said, We'll just act according to the original plan. We'll first activate the void teleportation formation in Yingzhou Mountain to attract the enemy's attention. Then, we'll activate the void teleportation formation in Penglai Mountain and send everyone over. We'll immediately stop after a feint at Yingzhou Mountain. After all, the great Zhou Empire has lost Fangzhong Mountain. It's already not bad to be able to monitor the movements of a mountain. If we control it well, the enemy can only return empty-handed. Li Yuanfang's gaze also landed on the Great Hall of All Heavens. In this case, the secret that our sect has Penglai Mountain can't be hidden within the sect. We can only expose it. Xiao Yan said, just pay attention to control it. This is also the last step. Prepare for the worst. Li Yuanfang took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, There's a message from the great Qin dynasty. This time, at least the Shushan Sword sect, the Reincarnation sect, and the Eastern Heavenly Gate are coming for us. Xiao Yan smiled. We'll deal with whatever comes our way. We can only fight. He came to his senses. All right, how's little junior sister doing? Li Yuanfang said. She brought second senior brother's talisman. It should be of use when the time comes. She's already gone to prepare. Xiao Yan nodded. I have to thank that fellow Taoist Chu Yang. You should also go and prepare. This time, we'll be facing a huge battle. In the past, it was Master who shielded us. Now, it's time for us to share his burdens. Li Yuanfang cupped his fists and bowed. Yes, senior brother. At this moment, there were many balls of air floating in the All Heavens Great Hall. Within each ball of air, there were many lights and shadows flashing. They were like mini worlds, and in each mini-world, there were countless people. One of the balls of air was filled with cultivators from beyond Heaven Mountain. Among the group of cultivators, a black-robed youth sat cross-legged silently. It was Chu Yang. Opposite him was a haggard Li Baitao. Li Baitao stared at Chu Yang. So senior brother sect leader and junior brother Meng contacted Shenmen Tianzong through you. However, you suddenly went out this time. Although I didn't personally follow you, there was a Yuanian cultivator from the Shushan sword sect. How did you hide from him and secretly return to beyond Heaven Mountain? Even if you have the Sky Sword talisman of the Northwest Serene Heavenly Sword left behind by the ancient Heavenly Gate, as a Golden Elixir intermediate stage cultivator, you can't hide from a Yuanian cultivator. Chu Yang, who was at the Golden Elixir intermediate stage, smiled. Second martial uncle, that's because I never left the mountain. Li Baitao frowned. That's impossible. I saw you leave. You can't hide from me. There's no way someone is impersonating you. Chu Yang smiled. His aura immediately changed. His cultivation reached the Golden Elixir advanced stage. Li Baitao was surprised. Your cultivation hiding technique can actually hide from the eyes of a Yuanian cultivator? However, the person who went down the mountain? His expression suddenly became strange. Could it be that you, a Golden Elixir advanced stage cultivator, refined a Golden Elixir intermediate stage clone? Chapter 842. In response to Li Baitao's question, Chu Yang smiled. I've had some fortuitous encounters in the past few years. Li Baitao frowned slightly. I can roughly sense that your actual age is different from your appearance. You've probably cultivated in a space or grotto heaven with accelerated time. However, to be able to reach late-stage Golden Elixir, your speed is truly unexpected. If I remember correctly, during the Kunlun Mountain Dharma Assembly, the sixth disciple of the Taoist sect's master, Li Yuanfeng, was early-stage Golden Elixir just like you. Now, you're even faster than him. Li Baitao said lightly, such talent is truly shocking. In the past, the few of us were blind and didn't see that you were a diamond in the rough. This time, you've made a great contribution. Perhaps you can get a position in Xianmen Tianzong? But you have to remember, everything will have to wait for the Celestial Sect of Wonders to survive this calamity. Chu Yang looked at Li Baitao and slowly shook his head. Taoist Li under sect leader Lin isn't what you think, second martial uncle. As for me, I'm a disciple of Beyond Heaven Mountain. I'm Master's disciple. This will never change. We've come this far just to have a way out for Beyond Heaven Mountain. In the end, sect leader, Master, and I just made a different choice from second martial uncle. Li Baitao smiled coldly. A choice that placed Beyond Heaven Mountain in great danger. Chu Yang looked at Li Baitao and suddenly smiled. However, his smile was very cold. Second martial uncle, back then, you relied on Great Qin's minister Wu Qingru and colluded with Shu Mountain under Wu Qingrou's orders. You even attempted to assassinate Great Zhou's prince Liang Qian. Ask yourself, have you thought about the consequences? Beyond Heaven Mountain will be the first to suffer the wrath of the Great Zhou dynasty. You created a conflict between Shu Mountain and the Great Zhou dynasty, and after Wu Qingru resigned and went into seclusion, you decided to join Shu Mountain completely. How much of this was for the sect and how much was for yourself? When Chu Yang mentioned Wu Qingrou's name, Li Baitao's gaze dimmed. Senior brother sect leader and junior brother Meng also know? You knew it earlier than me. After Chu Yang finished speaking, Li Baitao sighed. I knew that Prime Minister Wu wanted to assassinate Great Zhou's Prince Liang Qian, but I didn't expect it to be to incite a conflict between Shushan and Great Zhou. After all, Great Qin and Great Zhou are enemies. Back then, the mission I received was only to deliver information and guide the assassin to Liang Qian's exact location. Silently, Chu Yang said, but after the assassination is successful, Wu Qingru will expose you, implicating our main sect, which has already attached itself to Shushan. Then, she will use many other methods to incite conflict between the Great Zhou and Shushan, causing the conflict between the two powers to escalate. This is Wu Qingrou's doing. She made the Mount Shu Sword sect and the Great Zhou dynasty face off, focusing all of their attention on each other. Meanwhile, Great Qin used this time to clean up its own internal problems and remove the tumor. Wu Qingru was the one who planned the game, while the Great Zhou dynasty and the Mount Shu Sword sect were the players. It's a pity that Beyond Heaven Mountain was a pawn in Wu Qingrou's plan. After playing its role, it was eaten up. However, Liang Qian didn't die in the end. Many changes happened later, which exceeded Wu Qingrou's expectations. Xianmen Tianzong suddenly rose to power and became enemies with Shushan. Only then did Beyond Heaven Mountain escape a calamity. Chu Yang let out a long breath. Now it's the second calamity. Li Baitao's face was ashen. He let out a long sigh and fell silent. Chu Yang also fell silent. He didn't continue to speak, nor did he plan to do anything else. He stayed in the spiritual world created by his spiritual power, quietly waiting for the storm to arrive before leaving. Sitting and waiting for death had never been his style. However, the impending war was not something he could participate in during the Golden Elixir period. More accurately, most people could not participate in it. The level of the two sides was too high. However, Chu Yang's state of mind was as calm as ever. A sword seemed to ring out from the depths of his soul. If we can survive this calamity, Beyond Heaven Mountain can enjoy a period of peace. I can also move. Chu Yang didn't leave his doppelganger here. Instead, he stayed with Wu Yunliang, Meng Chaoran, and the others. This was also a form of attitude. Xiao Wu. Chu Yang closed his eyes slightly. The only feeling he had at this moment was a sense of loss. He also found it a little funny. You protected me this time. Although Xiao Yan and the others had escaped unscathed against Jie Luoshe, the Grand Supreme Elder of Shushan and a third-tier primordial spirit swordsman, the twin poles Sky Peak and Monk Dade were severely injured. Xianmen Tianzong's losses were not light either. The only consolation was that Xiao Yan had broken through his bottleneck in this battle. He had proven his primordial spirit, and his strength had improved greatly. On Shushan's side, Sword Venerable Taiyin and Sword Venerable Guanchong had been seriously injured. Guanchong could only return to Shushan to recuperate. He had also withdrawn from the siege of Yujing Mountain. Among them, Sword Venerable Guanchong's injuries were especially serious. After Xiao Yan's reward, he was lucky to recover. It was very likely that he would never be able to refine his spirit and return to the void again in this life. In the battle with Jie Luoshe, Xiao Yan's primordial spirit incarnation had also been injured. He was now making use of the time to recuperate. However, he knew that he did not have much time. Although the void transportation formation had been destroyed, the entrance to the Xiantian realm was located in the southern foothills of Kunlun Mountain. It was not far from Yujing Mountain, which was located in the northern foothills of Kunlun Mountain. Jie Luoshe was a great sword cultivator at the third tier of the primordial spirit transformation realm. He would arrive very soon. However, the ones who arrived first weren't the ones who dislodged the falling rocks. Before they dislodged the falling rocks, not even a moment after Xiao Yan and the others stepped onto Jing Mountain, there was already a large army of other people pressing down on Jing Mountain. Above the clouds, Yujing Mountain floated in midair. At this moment, in the southern sky of Yujing Mountain, the void suddenly split open. Thick clouds surged out, and a few extremely powerful auras emerged. The invisible pressure caused the mirror-like lake beneath the clouds to undulate. Turbid waves surged into the sky. The thick clouds dispersed, revealing a group of people. The person in the lead was a youth who looked to be about 14 or 15 years old. His face was like jade and he was handsome. He was dressed in white and looked otherworldly. It was as if he was a celestial being who had descended to the mortal world. He tapped the tips of his feet lightly and walked in the void. He did not exude much of a terrifying aura, but everyone else followed closely behind him. The person who had come was the former sect master of the reincarnation sect, the current sect master of the reincarnation sect, Shi Tianfeng, a mighty cultivator of the Dao integration stage. Two people followed behind Shi Tianfeng. One was a middle-aged man with elegant features. He was dressed in a brocade robe and had an exquisite little wine gourd hanging from his waist. There was also a leather pouch hanging beside the wine gourd. The pouch jingled as he moved. He was the sect master of the Tao integration stage like Shi Tianfang, Zhang and Rui. The other person was a tall and thin middle-aged Taoist with a stiff expression. He was the sect master of the Hungry Ghost sect, Taoist Sky Ghost of the Void Return stage. Shi Tianfang, Zhang and Rui, and Taoist Sky Ghost all looked at Yujing Mountain, which was covered by a sea of purple clouds. Even Taoist Heavenly Ghost's dull and lifeless eyes revealed a bit of fanaticism. Behind them were some other mighty cultivators of the reincarnation sect. This time, the reincarnation sect had practically turned out in full force. Zhang and Rui looked at Yujing Mountain and sighed. It really is an immortal mountain. Taoist Sky Ghost looked down at the empty cloud mirror city and said in his stiff and emotionless voice, Shenmen Tianzong is ready. Zhang and Rui nodded. They have given up on their peripheral forces. All related people should have retreated to Yujing Mountain in order to concentrate on defending against us. Presumably, the Polar Sky Peak and Monk Dada from the Mystic Heaven Realm have also returned. Zhang and Rui turned to look at Shi Tianfeng. Sect Master, Wang Lin, one of the top 4 disciples of the Master of the Celestial Gate, and the other 2 disciples, Yu Hongyan and Yang Qing, have not returned to the mountain yet. Should we? Shi Tianfeng shook his head. There is no need to stop them. They are part of the plan anyway. It doesn't matter even if they return to the mountain. Zhang and Rui smiled. The Master of the Celestial Gate is indeed full of monstrous geniuses, especially Xiao, Zhu, Wang and Shi. They are amazing. The Master of the Celestial Gate is unfathomable. He is not as good as the Taishu Taoist, but who knows if he has other secrets. On the other hand, when I look at Xiao, Zhu, Wang and Shi, I can't help but think about the legends of the 4 heroes of the Great Void Realm. Although I haven't personally witnessed the might of the 4 heroes of the Great Void Realm, and the 4 of them are still at the late nascent soul stage, their terrifying potential is indeed somewhat similar. Zhang and Rui took out a wine cup from his pouch and poured himself a drink. He said with a smile, maybe we can call them the 4 Great Void Heroes? Unfortunately, we can't kill them. Otherwise, not to mention the Master of the Celestial Gate, the Taishu Temple will not agree. Taoist Sky Ghost said woodenly, raising a tiger will only invite disaster. Zhang and Rui shook his head and smiled. There are gains and losses. There is nothing we can do about it. Shi Tianfang said calmly, if they really don't know what's good for them, then kill them. We can't let them block the way. Zhang and Rui nodded with a smile and looked at Yujing Mountain. Speaking of which, the strongest of the 4 Great Void Heroes should be the second disciple, Yu Yi, right? The Heavenly Ghost Taoist said, his true body is at the late nascent soul stage, and he has many magical treasures with him. He almost killed Xiao Qingqing, who is at the nascent divinity incarnation stage of the Eastern Heavenly Gate. Xiao Qingqing has the Yang Sky Lantern, so her strength is at the top of the nascent divinity incarnation stage, but she is still not his match. In the Ying Ocean, he refined the body of the ancient Hao Yang Dao venerate Wang Hao and turned it into his clone. At this point, Taoist Sky Ghost's voice, which had always been flat, trembled slightly. A late Yuanying cultivator refined a clone of the Void Return stage. The most important thing is that after he possesses this avatar, the few magic treasures of the transformation stage and spirit nurturing stage can all be used to their full power. Therefore, his strength is firmly above the other disciples of the Celestial Sect of Wonders. At this time, in front of them, separated by the Jade Capital Mountain, the sky in the north also split open, and 2 white-bearded old men walked out from it. Both of them were clad in sky-blue long robes. The one in the lead looked across the void at Shi Tianfang and the others. He smiled. In the past, who would have thought that a bastard son of Zhu Hongwu who had been ordinary for 15 years would have such a fortune? You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.